week. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 126. And tonight I am joined by Nate Hale in the garage, and we have a very special guest, Jarod Saunders.
Not that special, but thank you.
Special to us, but welcome. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys. Can we do
pleasure.
a colder day next time?
No.
Maybe not in the middle of summer.
This is actually, I think, better.
Yeah, we can do it in February. How about that?
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah, that could be bad.
It's free. Yeah, these guys have been in here when it's cold. This is much better.
The peanut gallery's all like, no, today's better.
You can drink more water, yeah. But I do want, you're with Micallef Cigars.
Yes, sir.
And not necessarily, it's kind of a newer brand, but
relatively newer. Yeah, so we're a smaller brand. Been around for 5 years, mostly out of Texas. That's where Al Micallef lives, out of Dallas-Fort Worth. Started there. And then, in the last couple of years, you really started to see the brand really grow outside of the Texas area. So
we're going to learn more about that.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we're going to learn more about it. We're smoking one of these cigars. And this is the Micallef Herencia Maduro Toro. This is a special size. So we'll talk more about that. We've got a bottle here, Joseph Magnus. This is the just straight bourbon. And it's finished in, I think it said sherry and cognac cask. Is that right?
It's triple cask.
Sherry and cognac.
Cask.
And that's courtesy of Bobby Crow.
Exactly. I put that on the post as well on Facebook Live. So if you guys are listening to the audio on iTunes or Spotify, iHeartRadio, any of those Luminary, any of those podcast listeners, we broadcast every Wednesday night about 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook, also YouTube Live. So if you guys want to check it out, be a part of the conversation, be a part of the community, really happy to have you guys on. And I do want to thank the sponsors here. I'm going to throw them up on the video here if I can see this far. But Tinder Box at Easton, that's kind of the hookup for all of this stuff. The Micallef Cigars are from Micallef Cigars tonight. Mm-hmm. We do carry those at our sponsor, the Tinder Box. They carry the Bold series.
Yep, the Grande Bold line. That's what you guys focused on right now. Yep. So
they have the Sumatra. They have we had the Modafina. I think we still may.
Yeah. So it's the Bold line is going to be the Sumatra, the Modafina, the Nicaragua, the Maduro, and the Ligero. That's going to be our core line. And
so we have some of those. So check those out. We're looking at possibly expanding the line here, coming out of the whole COVID thing and everything else as things get back to normal. We're hoping to have that be the case. And then also we want to thank Altadis USA. I've got some Onyx here. So I see there's more cigars from Micallef, so we may or may not get to the Onyx tonight, but that's a great one. Connecticut Broadleaf on that one. That is it's a cigar, I think, from Altadis that anymore from a senior cigar smoker, it's kind of passed over.
Yeah.
It's kind of a more medium, straightforward smoke. And I think the last time I smoked one was actually in Connecticut when we were visiting the fields. And I was like, I don't know if it's being here, looking at Connecticut Broadleaf and learning more about the Connecticut River Valley, but it tasted a lot better out there. And it's a good smoke.
That always does help. I mean, anytime you get a chance to go to the farm or the factory, I mean, it always makes everything taste just a little bit better, which I think anyone who's ever been down can tell you that.
Absolutely.
The Onyx was actually the first non-flavored cigar I ever smoked at a shop in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I was smoking Javas because I thought it was cool and they tasted good at 18 years old.
True.
And then one of the old timers comes up to me and goes, "We're going to get you onto a real cigar."
Yeah.
And so Onyx was number 2 for me.
Fantastic. So if you want, you're welcome to one. I've got them here.
I appreciate it.
I know you're kind of obviously.
I've got a little bit of, I didn't know. This is my first time here. So.
We're happy to have you. Also, be a cigar company. I've got a gold over here, I believe, maybe a silver in the garage as well. But check those out as well. I did want to mention between Altadis, our sponsor, and Tinder Box at Easton, now through next Tuesday, if you contact Tinderbox at Easton, you can do it eastontinderbox@gmail.com. You can call the shop. You can stop in if you're in the Columbus area. But there is a 5 cigar pack, and I'm trying to think all of what's in there. You got a Romeo Julieta Reserva Real Nicaragua. You got a Romeo y Julieta Reserve, which I love. That's that Nicaraguan wrapper, Habano wrapper, which is different, I think, for Romeo Julieta. That's Jose Sejas back in the day. And then you also have the Onyx is in there. And then you have...
Is there an Espada?
There is a Monte Cristo Espada in there as well, which is a $14.95 cigar.
I love that smoke.
It's not a bad
and then you've got the Upman Hispaniola again in there as well, which has been very popular. So those cigars, 20+% off at Tinderbox at Easton, and that comes out to $39.99 plus tax. So fantastic deal. check it out if you guys want. And we appreciate you guys checking out Altadis USA and Tinder Box at Easton. And also patreon.com, as I break the water pitcher, patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. You guys can also continue to support or add to it anytime you want. Monthly support with Patreon helps us do this, helps us kind of have all the technology behind it. Obviously, this killer studio, it's fully air conditioned and fully heated in the winter time. So
isn't Patreon where you do
fantastic.
like girls go and do like their nudes and stuff like that?
I can post pictures on there. I don't. It's not the same thing as OnlyFans, if that's what you're thinking of.
Go to the Bourbon BS OnlyFans as well. That's a completely different
Patreon.com.
content. You will find that.
No, you're right though. There are some.
That's what that
models that-
started
yeah.
off with, though, right?
There
Yeah.
are not those types
So
of
I've heard.
pictures on our
So
page.
I've heard. I
Not
would
yet.
not know, but I've heard.
All right.
You guys will get that AC up here real fast if that changes.
All right.
I don't know. If Steve starts posting
all right,
topless
calm down.
pictures, we might start having more female patrons.
No. No.
Steve's already regretting allowing me to come.
Yeah.
It's been 5 minutes in, and it's already just
So we have. I'm
Down
going to
there.
throw this out there right now because you guys started like this. The magic word tonight, like Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Oh.
Everyone's got a drink.
don't do
If
No.
if we say, if anyone says out there LFD or La Flor Dominicana, and we'll explain that maybe later, maybe not.
If
Anyone.
no.
All right, no, if it's you guys, if I
was
can't,
gonna
I'm not
say.
part of this game. Anyways, that's the word. If you're listening on the audio later and you're driving, you don't get to play that game. But anyone listening live right now, if you're sitting,
but your passenger
enjoying
can
it.
in certain
your
states.
passenger can, whatever. It's all the Wild West out there anymore. It's like to go drinks all the time. And you're like, don't drink this until you get home.
DUIs are
Okay.
up. Shocker. Who thought?
Anyways, let's get into Micallef here.
Okay.
Micallef, we are smoking the Herencia Maduro Toro, and this is part of not the Grande Bold. This is part of the kind of a step up. I mean, how do you explain? You guys have kind of like different levels. I feel like of cigars.
In one way to look at it, so we have two. You can basically take our portfolio and you kind of split it up into two sections. So you have the Grande Bold line, which are the cigars I mentioned earlier, and then what we call our legacy line. One is not better than the other.
Yeah.
It just kind of has to do with the Grande Bold lines are all going to be very similar in blends, slight tweaks on them as you go through the different ones with the wrappers and some of the binders and fillers. The legacy line though is kind of what we really put a lot of our the Gomez Sanchez family really got behind. So, a little brief backstory. 5 years ago, Al Micallef, this gentleman who lives in Dallas Fort Worth area, he's got a business down there, and he was at a cigar shop called Silverleaf Tobacco, and Gomez Sanchez family was there doing a rolling event, and they're a really small brand, manufactured actually out of Mexico at the time, out of the San Andreas Valley.
Yep.
And Al met them, loved the cigars, and commissioned them to make 500 boxes for him. And
Just a private label.
just a private label. It was
Okay.
just going to be for him and some of his friends and his fishing buddies he takes to his ranch.
Nice.
And, he started learning more about them, started learning more about the cigar aspect of it. And I think anyone who's in the cigar industry will tell you that there is like a romantic level of being in the cigar industry. And like, once you go down there and you see how cigars are made and you're actually a part of that, like it's hard not to fall in love with it.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to fall in love with the first family that you ever get. We were just briefly talking about, smoking an onyx inside the fields of, the Connecticut fields. Like you feel connected to it. And so that's what Al, did. And, Al said, I have the money. I'd like to, give this a shot. I think it's a really great cigar. I would like to, see if we can do a cigar company. And the Gomez Sanchez family has been making cigars in their family since the 30s.
Yeah, it says on the band, I believe.
Yeah, 1932. Yep.
Family 1934 on this one.
Oh, I messed that up. My boss watches this. I'm gonna get screwed on that one.
That's what you said, 1934.
Yeah, but
We'll edit that out.
Perfect. Thank you.
We won't.
We won't edit that. Out of all the things I'll say tonight, that's
I'll
the
edit that
least-
out of this live video right now.
Yeah. But no. So he he just fell in love with the story and the family, and decided to start making cigars with them. And originally, where stuff was being made out of Mexico, and unfortunately, when you're in Mexico, it makes it really hard to get a lot of really good quality product from around the world. It makes it easier if you're in the Dominican or you're in Nicaragua or you're in Honduras, because you're right there.
Well, it's easier to get that San Andreas wrapper or,
Yeah,
to these other places where a lot of the bigger manufacturers
exactly.
are.
Like
Right?
if you want Mexican San Andreas tobacco, obviously being in Mexico is where you want to be at. But if you want to build relationships up with all these other families that grow unbelievable tobacco around the world, you really got to go to the heart of it.
Like filler and binder,
Filler,
leaf, yeah.
binder, and a lot of wrapper out of Nicaragua. So
Sure.
so you go down there. So Al actually bought the old Davidoff Nicaragua factory right in Esteli. And then the
Okay.
Gomez Sanchez family moved over there and started making cigars for us. And really not making cigars for us, it's making cigars. When I say us, it is a true partnership between the families. The Gomez Sanchez family and Al Mchale.
Yeah.
Yes, did he put up the money for it? Of course, but he knows how to run businesses, but he didn't know the basic manufacturing levels of cigars, whereas the Gomez Sanchez family, that's what they've always done.
It's a partnership, like you said.
It's a true partnership. It is.
Give a little bit of background, because I know a little bit. I read an interview. I've talked to you a little bit about it, but with it being just, you said 5 years ago, basically, is when this came to fruition from the Micallef Cigars standpoint. So again, relatively new brand, but you said you started with the fact that Al just basically was at a cigar shop and then fell in love with this brand, yada, yada, yada. But when you say like, oh, he just bought this factory, I mean, obviously there's something behind that as far as what led into it. And I know I don't think there wants, like, you guys want to have a separation between the cigars and Al. I mean, obviously he put his name on it, but I mean, what kind of background does he have?
So Al's a business guy. He owns his major business is a company called JMac Industries, and they do rubber sealants for a lot of automotive. They do a lot of medical grade rubber sealants and things like that. And so that's where he made his money. And he has factories all over the world. Our main one is in Dallas, Fort Worth. But he loves running the business aspect of it, and he loves the manufacturing, and he loves getting down to the nitty gritty of it. So when he started really getting into cigars, he really absorbed a lot of knowledge. Like, he wasn't just some guy that said, well, I have a bunch of money, let me just pay somebody to make cigars for me, and I'm gonna throw my name on it because I'm the guy with the checkbook. Like, if you meet him at events, he's an awesome guy, and he will sit there and he'll talk to you about the production, about the quality of tobacco. Like, he's really spent the last 5 years learning as much as he can about it. Like, because that's just
attention to detail, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And now, granted, he has a great family to kind of walk him through that and kind of teach him that.
The Sanchez family.
But he really is hands-on with that aspect of it and really learning it. Now we're at a point where we're growing, where the pillars have been built, the product's there. And 2 years ago, we brought in a gentleman named Dan Thompson, who's our president of both JMac and Micallef Cigars. And they really put this, I don't want to say pressure, but they really put this emphasis on, we're going to do this right. Like, we're actually a part of JMac Industries, and so we have resources that not a lot of other companies of our size have.
Yeah.
And we have a massive warehouse that we share with JMac. We have an HR department. We have an accounting department. We have all these things that a company of our size would normally not have access to.
So you pair off of, obviously, the major side of the business.
Yes.
There.
So we use a lot of their resources, and what that allows us to do, it allows us to hire a professional sales team to get the name out there. Because I think we've all smoked cigars. I know Nate has, I know you have, I know everyone listening has, where it's a great cigar, but they just, for some reason, the rep in the area or the presentation of the brand just isn't able to get out there in the same way.
Yeah.
And it's just because they don't have the resources for it. So that was something that we really put a lot of energy into, hiring a national sales director who has experience in the industry. So my boss actually worked with at LFD for a long time. And he took over his role. Oh man, we did
LFD,
get it. That was it.
Nice. Everyone drank. Oh, you got Gatorade Blue.
Oh, for the record, I'm not a bourbon guy.
You are,
so
tonight.
I will make faces every time I drink that, but it is good. It is good. But
great salesperson here.
But my face will not tell you that whatsoever. So no, we've brought in a professional sales team with guys that have experience from around the industry, not brokers, which a lot of times when you're a small cigar company, you have to start off the broker route, and it's not a bad way to do it. It's just it's the more inexpensive way to start off with. But unfortunately, a broker, they have other brands, they have other focuses to make their money from. So when you have a professional sales team that work for just Micallef, it makes that their focus. Like when I walk into a store,
they are focused.
Yeah, they are focused. Like I'm not selling, 15 different brands plus a lighter plus some pipes.
Yeah,
I'm selling Micallef cigars.
Yeah.
So
no, it's good.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing a lot.
No, thank you.
Again, I feel like that was the whole thing we talked about. Jarod, you and I, where it was like, I feel like people don't know about it.
Oh, you're 100% right. And that's
because 5 years is not a long time.
No, not at all. Especially
I don't care how much money you have behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the cigar industry is really a unique company in the industry in the fact that you can't just throw a bunch of money at it and be successful.
Oh, absolutely.
You really have to put energy, the time, money obviously makes things a little bit easier, helps kind of smooth over some of those speed bumps, but you have to have the product, but you have to get your name out there. I mean, I used to work for a retail store and I would go to the trade show every year and I would taste unbelievable cigars and then they'd be gone the next year or they'd be gone 6 months later or no one knew about them. I'd bring them in and it was on the retailer to explain the history and to explain everything to the customers. And so when you have the resources to have a professional sales team out there, you can do things like a podcast in a garage that's 500 degrees and tell people the history of the company. This is
probably the nicest garage for any cigar podcast on a weekly basis on Wednesday nights at 7:30.
You guys have the best podcast for 7 p.m. Wednesday nights Eastern time
in a garage for the cigar and bourbon industry. This is probably the nicest garage.
Hands down.
Yeah, of all the garages that people use,
at least top 3.
It's got a fridge.
It does have a fridge.
It's got 2 fridges.
Sure.
It's because I put a third one down in the basement. Because I figure like we're gonna blow a circuit every time we do a podcast. If I have 3 fridges out here, we still might do that. Right. Bobby Hirschman says it's the only garage podcast that you know about, that I know about. That I don't. It's probably the only garage podcast. I don't know.
COVID might have taken that title from you though, just because
there's a lot more competition on Wednesday nights when that was going
I did
on.
feel like one of the cool things about COVID was it brought everyone together on that, and so out of nowhere you saw everybody doing podcasts.
Absolutely.
Now, I think if you're an established brand, I think it might have been a little bit more difficult because it's now you're competing with a lot more people.
It was, and it's opening back up, I think, a little bit, and of course, now it's people are just doing different things. Some things are opening back up so that now you're more involved with the family. I noticed that in the beginning of, Wednesday nights or every night, I felt like there was the first few weeks, 4 weeks of everyone in the country basically being shut down.
There was a Zoom call. There was a podcast. There was something going on.
And I was out here every night in my garage, by myself, smoking, either listening to one on a Zoom call on something. And then by, 4 weeks later, I'm just like, all right, I'm done. Someone's like, hey, you want to do a call tonight? I'm like, no, I've done it last 3 nights.
Well,
I'm hungover from 3 nights ago.
Speaking of podcasts, you got a fan out there, Laurel Tilley says Jared's the best.
Yeah.
I love Laurel.
And she's still doing live stuff.
Yeah, she does it on Wednesdays.
Laurel
just after.
Yeah, so she might be. So she's probably the number one. If she does it moves to the garage, you guys are screwed.
Well, no, she was when she was a guest on here. She is still the reigning champ of most views on a podcast.
Yeah,
I can't imagine why.
Because she's awesome.
She is awesome.
And someone did ask. So if you are a retailer here in the state of Ohio, can they get Micallef?
Yes. So we do have a handful of retail stores in Ohio. So obviously Tinder Box at Easton. There's a couple other stores. I always tell people the best way to look for Micallef is to go to our website, micallefcigars.com. We have a list of all of our retail partners, wherever you're at. If you type in your address, your zip code, they'll give you the closest one.
The reason I was asking is because the person who asked that is actually a shop owner.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
I can be contacted at Micallef Jared on Instagram or Jared at micallefcigars.com. I really,
what is your OnlyFans?
Or you can,
my OnlyFans is Micallef Jared. It's a $9.99 subscription
a month.
I'm a classy broad.
Or you can just go up to Delaware and see Ed.
Yes. Or you.
No, that's who's asking.
That's who's asking.
Oh, okay. Ed's asking. Hi, Ed.
He's like, no, you can't. Yes, he doesn't carry it.
But on a side note, though, we do have a really good following of a lot of core guys. We call them our Micallef ambassadors, which if anyone's listening, want to learn more about Micallef, go to our website, micallefcigars.com. This will be my quick plug for the night. It won't happen again. But we've
been talking about your cigars for the last 20 minutes.
That's true. But if you
that's your plug,
that is my
This is my ongoing plug for the next 20 minutes.
20 minutes
and last 20
maybe
minutes.
hour.
But beyond that, I will not talk about Micallef cigars.
Oh no, I'll have to keep talking about it. But there's so you can go onto our website. It'll tell you. Yeah, true. You'll be able to find your closest retail partner. You'll also get a list of what we call our ultimate inventory partners, which is really cool. So if you live in a place where there's not a Micallef store near you, all of our ultimate inventory partners have it set up where you can order any of our cigars from them and then pay the store, and we will drop ship it directly to your house right from our warehouse in Dallas, Fort Worth. So it's a really cool way for anyone to get involved on that. The other cool thing that I suggest people to do is sign up to become a Micallef ambassador. It's free. You get this really cool challenge coin with a unique number to it.
Yeah, that's a cool program you guys have.
And then once you get your coin, you can sign up to be on the Micallef Ambassadors Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group. It's obviously very Micallef focused. We talk about where you can get our cigars, especially limited releases. Stores will plug events. We'll do live stream from events. We also do these really
share
cool
podcasts that you're on.
Yep, we share podcasts that we're on. We also do
Currently.
these really cool interviews called Off the Record, where we actually interview people from around the industry. So we've had Omar from Fratello Cigars on there, Casey and Dan Welsh from Surrogates and Tatuaje.
Yep.
I actually had to. So when I started with Mchale, I did the first Off the Record after Casey and Dan. So it was like a total letdown for all the ambassadors because you had these awesome guys that are super entertaining. And then like the next week, it's this bald guy who's now living in the Midwest for them.
Yeah, like who's this guy?
Yeah, it was
What's he? Oh, he's a rapper. Okay.
Oh,
Cool.
that guy.
Yeah.
Steve's bald and lives in the Midwest.
I am.
Yeah, but he has a podcast. I was literally a guy
Anyone
doing
can
this from
have
my
a
car.
podcast.
That's true.
You just do it. You just start it up.
So, but yeah, so get on there, check out the Micallef Ambassador page. It's a really fun group of guys. We have like 2,500 members on there right now, and we have a 92% engagement rate. So I think we're all members of at least 5 to 10 different cigar groups. And some guys post sometimes. That one is really interactive with a lot of the guys. So,
well, I know Steven mentioned this before. Like, is it one of those where literally all it is like someone taking a picture of their hand? The cigar?
You're gonna get a lot of that. But you do get a lot of guys talking about like, we did a whole live stream with all the reps for Bourbon Day, for National Bourbon Day.
Oh, that's cool.
And we all got drunk on the podcast. I was driving at the time, so I actually had to moderate it for a change, which was a nice change of pace.
We all got drunk.
Yeah. So, but it was great. So we were talking about bourbon. I mean, we talked about cigars a little bit, but it was mostly about bourbon, whiskeys, and I'm a rum guy, so I naturally drove the conversation towards rum to try to take it over.
Who's Dan Thompson? You know Dan Thompson?
Dan Thompson is my boss's boss.
He says you did great, Jared. At least 3 people watched you on Off the Record.
Yes.
So,
oh my God.
3 plus.
I'll take 3.
Multiple people.
No,
Yeah,
it was
a better way to say that. Multiple people.
It was
were
one
watching.
person that checked in 3 times.
One person with 3. It was actually my mom. I just had her set up 3 different internet access points, and so I was all set.
Yes. All right. So
my cousins don't like me that
now
much.
that we established that, let's talk a little bit about the Herencia Maduro blend, as well as you said today when you kind of showed me the cigar that this is a special size or a new size.
It's a new size. So we've been making the Herencia for a while. So the blend on it, so it's a Nicaraguan Maduro wrapper. It's an Ecuadorian Sumatra binder, and then it's got Nicaraguan Honduran fillers in it.
Slow down and say it one more time.
So it's Nicaraguan Maduro wrapper.
Okay.
It's a Sumatra binder.
Okay.
And then it is a Ecuadorian or Honduran and Nicaraguan filler.
Okay.
So
Okay.
We've made the Herencia before, and it usually comes in a box press torpedo size.
Okay.
And then last week we just released the Toro version of both the Habano wrapped and then what we're smoking currently, the Maduro wrapper.
The Nicaraguan Maduro.
So this is brand new for us. It just hit retailers on Friday, right in time for the 4th of July weekend. So
It's stout, man.
it's stout, but it's not overpowering, which is I really like. So,
and it's interesting. I smoked it earlier today, and it's interesting to me because it's one of those cigars that when I'm smoking it, Nate, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it. But especially on a hot day, like I was in air conditioning earlier, but it's like it's got this. I feel like it's about to like have that dry finish, and it never really gets super dry.
Yeah.
It like kind of like some like I don't know like some like San Andres wrapper. Typically like that. Like 4 or 5 years ago, like everything with a San Andres wrapper, I feel like it was like almost like drying me out a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Or I had to drink a lot of water, not because it's 90 degrees, but because of that. And then with this one, I feel like it starts off like, oh, this is really good, but it's about to get like dry and bitter. And then I don't get that. It doesn't finish like that for me. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. I lit one up driving today, and I usually don't smoke like that medium to full-bodied cigars like when it's this hot out because it's just like anything, man. It's too hot to to deal with it. But I lit it up in a store, and then I was leaving, and I was in my mind, I'm like, oh man, this cigar is gonna kick my ass as I'm driving. And it never, like you said, it never went over that limit of too strong or too dry. Like it just it kept going, which was really nice.
What do you guys classify it? Well, Nate, what do you think? What do you think of the cigar? How would you classify the strength without the cheat sheet of having the rep here?
I would say medium to full, pushing that full body.
Yeah.
Get a nice balance of flavor on the palate, but then on the retrohale, just a ton of spice on the retrohale, but not so much spice where your eyes are going to start watering, just enough to let you know it's there. But I mean, it's pleasant.
Yeah. No, and I think that's, I think there's this thought about Maduro wrap cigars that
Okay.
have to be super strong. And there was a time in our industry not too long ago where everybody was hunting for these big, bold, kick you in the face cigars. I used to sell some of them. And, no, I didn't say it.
No.
I've been very
What do you
cautious.
mean?
No.
What do you mean you used to
In a
sell
past
them?
life, I sold them.
Past life.
But
You and me both.
even for me,
You guys both did?
yeah, at one point.
Shut it.
For me, I don't like those big kick you in the
Shannon.
teeth cigars.
Seriously.
All right, well, that's peer pressure right there.
You danced around it.
I like cigars that have full flavor, but not necessarily full bodied.
Yeah.
Like I want to taste a lot of the cigar. I want to taste the subtle nuances. And sometimes I feel like certain cigars will go out there and they'll be made just to be this big flavor bomb.
Oh,
this
yeah.
big pepper bomb. And
Well-
to me, that's not enjoyable because I want to taste the cigar.
Well, and
Or like a Lajero drip, basically.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's like
Well,
a nicotine drip.
we still get that question a lot of times in retail that people think if it's got a dark wrapper on it, if it's a Maduro or something, it's going to be this super strong kick you in the teeth cigar. And I'm like, no, that's not always the case.
That Onyx is a perfect
I was,
example.
I,
The
I was
Onyx is-
reaching for it as you were
Yeah,
saying
that's
that.
a great example.
the Onyx, the
It's a
Ashton
super-
Maduro.
yeah.
Ashton Maduro, yeah.
super
Leva
dark,
Fuente.
super dark wrapper on that Onyx, but it's a medium bodied cigar.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of flavor to it.
Uh-huh.
And that's what the Maduro does because of all the oils and all the sugars during the fermentation process. That's what gives it that color. And it just has a tremendous amount of flavor without making the cigar strong. Like the
Yeah.
rest of the tobacco in the blends, what makes it strong. Not
Well, I think when
necessarily
you
just
look at
that.
the history of cigars, when you go to blending cigars, just like anything, when it was all Cuban tobacco, everybody was smoking one blend basically.
Yeah.
And there's arguments about more Lajero, less Lajero, but at the end of the day, you're blending one type of tobacco grown in one of two regions in Cuba. Different levels of Lajero, Viso, Seco, and stuff like that.
Some
but
different seeds.
slightly different seeds.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's all Habano grown from one
Correct.
major region.
Yeah.
Whereas when that moved from Cuba and you started having manufacturers in Nicaragua, Mexico, Honduras, the Dominican Republic, you started blending all these different tobaccos together. And early on in the early 80s and 90s of cigars, when you had Maduros, there were these super hardy wrappers. And so you started just giving them a lot of strength behind it because you could, because it held up to it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where, as a culture, as a cigar culture, that's where we were going. I always look at it as like when you're drinking beer or I'm a wine guy, not a beer guy. So I always use wine. When you start drinking wine, you start off with really mild, right? You start off with like, white Zinfandels and things like that. And then as you drink more, you kind of progressively get to stronger full-bodied things. And next thing you know, you're drinking these full-bodied cabs that just kind of, you're tasting one big gummy note. And it's the same thing with cigars. You're tasting those big, rich cigars. But then as you become more of what I call a true cigar smoker, it becomes situational. Some days I want something that's full-bodied.
Well, sometimes, I think wine's a great example because, you being a wine guy, it depends on what you're eating
100%.
or smoking.
Or the weather
yeah,
outside and what
the
your day
weather.
was. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
I think that's the same thing with the cigars. I agree. The thing with the Cuban seed and all that stuff is that I agree with you to a point. I think there's enough variations as far as that goes, especially once you really dive into some of the more special ones, limited release stuff.
The special
and they had
and
like
limiteds
the
are different.
Criollo, the Corojo, they had a Habano, they had all that stuff, but it's still very limited. It is nothing. I think that's the best thing. I've said it many times. I think one of the best things to happen to the cigar industry was the trade embargo for one reason,
100%.
and that is that it just kind of bled into other countries, that some that were already established, like the DR, Honduras. You've got these families that have been around a very long time. Some not quite as old as Cuban families necessarily that were mainstream, but you had some that were decades and decades, almost a century, and then it's like now all of a sudden the market went to, okay, now let's go to Mexico, let's go to Brazil, let's go to, let's take these seeds and let's plant them in different regions, because there's a lot more
things like that.
there's a lot more freedom to do that in those other countries, in a sense that you can plant the same seed not only on different lots on the same farm, but now you got in Nicaragua, for example, you have 4 different regions, and each region planting the same seed and same plant, you're going to have slightly different flavors, different strengths. The soil's different.
Yeah,
But you're right. Pinot Del Rio is only so much.
Yeah. Well, I think that when you look at it as well, you have to think that cigars for a long time, you didn't smoke cigars to get these unbelievable flavor characteristics and things like that. You smoked cigars out of, it was a social aspect, and you were just smoking tobacco. It didn't really matter what necessarily you were smoking for a long period of time. But you take these families and you move them out of Cuba and you give them access to these unbelievable crops and these unbelievable lands. And now you have competition, because now you have to compete with Cuban cigars. So you have to be different. And that's competition always makes the best of anything. Like you guys are bourbon guys. If everybody was just making the exact same bourbon, you know, you have to separate yourself. I have to make mine better. I have to age it. I have to use better quality books. And that only makes the industry better because now you're getting better quality product because, you know, I make something and then, you know, Nate's got to make something better. And then you got to make something better. And then you start making different things because we start realizing that everybody's tastes are different. I mean, the cigar industry is unbelievable because you have so many different, I mean, we're a small company. We have 16 different blends, you know, I mean, and that we are.
Now they all coming out of the same factory.
So we have 2 factories that we put our stuff at. So the legacy line all comes out of us. Our bold line is actually made out of General. And we do that because we wanted
to with General.
Yeah. And we did that because, you know, listen, General is one of the largest cigar manufacturers in the world, and they are able to get us a quality product at a price and a consistent product. That's something that we're just not at the abilities right now for scale to do.
Yeah.
Eventually that will come to us. And that's part of our deal with them is that we will take over manufacturing of that at some point.
Okay.
But we have, when we do that, there goes my lighter. We have to do that at a time when we can make sure that the quality and the consistency is right. Like, because what we don't want to have happen is change blend or change factories, and all of a sudden everybody goes, "Oh, I like bold when it was made by somebody else."
Yeah, I think when you switch over to a different production, not only do you have the ability with General, obviously as big as they are, the price point, which that is your less expensive brand.
It's our more consistent
price.
Yes.
Okay,
it's all in that $7 to $10 range for all.
But you're using someone. But we've seen it with other brands in the past. If you guys are all cigar smokers out there, some are bourbon drinkers and not necessarily cigar smokers. But it's something that when you switch over to your own factory, you'll have sometimes a hiccup, if you will, where you'll get there. It might take a year or two to get back, you know, that consistency of what you had before. But you might have a hiccup, and that you can lose buyers real quick.
And that's why we're not in a rush to do it. Like it's one of those things that we are only going to do it when we can make sure that we can guarantee that it's going to be the same.
Yeah.
And that's our goal behind it, is because we understand, and that's part of, you know, that's some of Al's experience in running manufacturing around the world.
Yeah.
Is he knows that when you go from places like England to the United States, you could be making the exact same product using the exact same raw materials, but based off of whatever it is, you know, it's humans. Humans are imperfect and things can just slightly change place after place after place. And so we have to make sure that when we bring it into our factory, that we can make sure that it's the same quality product that we get.
Been saying that a lot with a lot of things going on in this world today. Everything's easy until you introduce humans to it and they fuck it up.
Yeah.
This Maduro, you guys don't like artificially color it or cook it.
No.
You do it by the aging process.
Yeah, we do it by the aging process. We do it the right way. And, you know, you'll look at some of our cigars, and some of our cigars will have a little bit higher price point on them than what normal, you know, what a lot of average guys will smoke. But there's a reason behind it. There's time, there's energy, there is it's
age.
Done the right way.
Yeah, because you know, one of the reasons I brought that up is you're talking about competition, and sometimes the younger companies, when they want to make a name for themselves in the industry, and they want to start picking up share in the industry, sometimes they may cut corners.
Yeah.
For the record, big companies will do it too.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
For sure.
Because we've talked about before with some of the younger whiskey companies, you know, using smaller barrels so that way they don't have to age it as long.
They reinvent the wheel on a point.
Yeah. You know, or they're using pressure to try and change.
And listen,
it.
I think in a very short amount of time, can you tell a difference? You know, a little bit here and there, and it doesn't make a big difference. But when I'm going to talk to a customer and I say, buy a Micallef cigar, buy a Herencia Maduro for $12.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell him why. And I want him to, I don't want to lie to him. Like I don't want to sit there and tell him a story that was told to me that turns out to be it's complete crap. Like,
which has happened many times.
It happens. I would say it happens all the time where, you know, a rep will go to a retailer like you guys, or because that's what he was told. And then it comes out a year, 6 months, whatever later. And then you find out, oh, that's not actually how it's done.
I can think of two. I'm not going to name the names, but it was like, one was something about like, oh, this is the history of the wrapper leaf. And it's a certain type, you know, it's a certain seed. And there's like this whole story behind the seed. And then it was like a year later, it was a different story. And I asked the rep about it. And he was honest. He's like, no, that's what we thought, you know, when, you know, news trickled down. And then there's another one that based on the name of the cigar when it was released, it was like, oh, it's just a deceiving name. It's not as strong as what it may sound like or look like with a band. It's more like medium bodied, a lot of flavor, full flavor. And I was like, yeah, I think you're right. And then it was like a year or so later, they were really pushing that. And it was like, oh no, it's the highest nicotine level in our portfolio. And I'm like, did you change the blend? They're like, no, it's always been like this. I was like, maybe, but I was told something completely different a year ago. And I still agree with what you told me a year ago, but I get it from a marketing standpoint or whatever. Maybe you guys were wrong then. I don't know. Maybe you were marketing it so that people weren't scared of it.
Yeah.
Because the trend was actually when they introduced that cigar, I can remember that it wasn't like they were joining that real strong, like Ligero.
They're climbing on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you're a good company, you have to adapt to what people think, you know, and at the end of the day, you know, we all have personal preferences. That's what makes cigars great. Like we have so much access to great tobaccos and to great cigars. And so for us, what I like is different than what you like and is what different than Steve likes on a regular basis. And so the goal is to say like, this is what it is to me. But when it hits the market, if I have it marketed as this big, bold, strong cigar or this really mild cigar, and then it turns out that the customers don't think that, we have to either change the blend, change the marketing. You know, you have to adapt to that if you want it to be successful. Because if I tell people it's this big, strong cigar, that varies for people. I mean, you know,
it's all relative too.
What's big and strong for me is different than what's big and strong for you, and what's different, big and strong to everybody else.
Yeah.
You know.
So what are we thinking about this cigar? We're going to rate it towards the end of part one here, but I mean, Nate, what do you think, man? I mean, I know you gave a little description of it, but as you're getting into it,
what would this retail for?
Good question.
What's MSRP on?
You're looking about $12. I mean, obviously, I live in Chicago, so it's always tough for me to give MSRPs to people.
Yeah.
What's suggested MSRP?
Around $12.
$12.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're looking at like in Ohio, if you do Keystone and you do the tax, you know, you're probably at about 13 to 14.
In Chicago, it's like $75.
In Illinois, it's 40, and then in Cook County, it's 75.
In Cook County, it's 75. Yep.
It's a 36%
and going up every day.
And then
every day,
every day,
Yeah.
every day, you got to pay for things.
No, I enjoy it. As I've gotten more and more into it, I get what you were saying earlier. Like you're expecting this dry note to hit, and it just doesn't happen.
Finishes very nicely.
It has a very good finish, very smooth finish. The flavor kind of lingers around a little bit, but then even in the retrohale, like once it's out, like it dissipates really quickly. But it's good when it's there.
Yeah.
These cigars are also going to richen up a little bit. They're very. I mean, we just got them in on last week. And
do you have like an age statement like on any of the tobacco? Do you guys market that? You know, some people are like, oh, the wrapper is 4 years old, 5 years old, or anything.
Not on any of our stuff right now. I mean, we're so young; it's harder for us to do that. If you go to our ultra premium line, our Reserva line, there is going to be some more aged tobaccos, and that kind of depends on the binder and the filler and the wrapper. But for us, it's really not. You know, we're not a brand that's been around for 15 years where we have this massive stockpile of tobacco that's sitting in a warehouse.
Sure.
I also always caution people when it comes to age statements on cigars because it's a very misleading thing.
Can be.
Because people will say, well, the tobacco is aged for 4 years. Well, does that mean they've had it for 4 years? Has it been sitting in a warehouse for 4 years? Has it been curing for 4 years? Has it been in a Polone for 4 years? That's a big difference.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
And that's, I think,
there's a huge difference between being in a Polone fermenting for 4 years and the cigar's been rolled and it's now aging in a humidor for 4 years.
You can pull
Yeah.
tobacco after 3 months of fermentation and then just put it in a bale and let it sit for 5 years and say, oh, it's 5-year-old tobacco. Okay, well, it's still under fermented. It's still bitter. It still doesn't have the quality and the consistency that you're looking for. And that's where it's always kind of tricky when you get to the age statements on cigars.
No, I agree.
You know,
I think
and
part
also,
of it's marketing, but I mean, there is
it's just like everything. It's 100% marketing.
Yeah.
But I think there's also like, people like, oh, I like aged cigars that sit in my humidor. And, I like to let most of my cigars sit in my humidor just because I think, especially living in the Midwest, you get cigars that just go through so many different climates. And so I like to let them sit for a little while.
Sure.
Just so they can kind of come to normal and you can kind of get the best quality product. But, it doesn't make that a huge difference. When you're aging something from 1 month to 6 months, the cigar is going to change a little bit, but
I just smoked a cigar yesterday that I've had in my humidor for almost a year.
Yeah.
And it was so incredibly smooth and so much flavor to it.
But some get worse over time though.
Some do. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of cigars I've had that
this was a, medium to full bodied cigar.
Mm-hmm.
So sitting in my humidor for about a year, smooth it out a little bit, but the flavor was still there. You know, when we talked with Ricky that one time,
Yep.
You know, you do that with a mild cigar, you're not going to taste anything after a while.
Well, I think there's also the point too, and Jared, you on the road. I mean, you're in the Midwest, so it may not be as substantial of a difference. But when you're down south for like sales meetings and stuff like that, do you find, because this is something that when we were doing the BS project, it was like when we were working with like Eric Espinosa and we were smoking those, we had our like top 4 or 5 blends that we were leaving Miami with, and we're like, all right, so this is probably what we're going to pick from or tweak from after we did 20 to 30, trial things down there. But he even told us, is like, make sure you guys smoke it, back up in Ohio.
Yeah.
Because it's going to taste different.
100%.
I mean, do you find that still like with what you're smoking in because this is fairly, you've been with Mchale for how long?
So it's been about 2 months.
2 months. So
Yeah.
you're very new.
I'm very new into it. And
in this brand, you're experiencing the industry. So you've already experienced it, but do you find that with this, because you haven't been down south smoking these yet?
no,
right?
I haven't been down to our office, or I haven't been down to a factory yet. So for me, I can't say that with Micallef Cigars, but I will tell you with a lot of other cigars, 'cause I've been to other factories.
Yeah.
And there is a difference.
Okay.
And there's also a difference of rolling a cigar right there and smoking it a day, 2 days, a couple hours later
Yeah,
versus smoking it even a week later. It completely changes.
absolutely.
And just the way it travels and things like that, like you have to consider all of those things when you're making a cigar.
Oh, when we got this last batch of the BS Gold in, I mean, I didn't say a whole lot until after I knew it was actually sitting and resting well.
Yeah.
But we were surprised because it was around that time of like COVID all starting, and we weren't expecting it. And all of a sudden we got the batch in of the BS Gold from Placencia, and I smoked it, and I barely said anything to Brian about it, who's the B of the BS. And I'm like, so how does it taste to you? And he's like, oh, it's good. And I'm like, yeah. And because it was like this rough retrohale, and I'm like, this isn't right.
Yeah.
And it was about 3 to 4 weeks later, and I can continuously, had them here that like every couple of days I smoked different sizes and everything like that. And it did take, because I think they did get it to us quicker than before.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when people say like, look, you want to roll it, even with aged tobacco, once you let it rest. And it could be, like you said, a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, 2 months later. And it's amazing how much a very little amount of time
Huge difference. Yeah.
can make a huge impact on that.
I mean, we're very fortunate. We have a couple guys in our office. Obviously, Dan's a big cigar smoker. Al smokes all of our cigars. So, we also have this younger guy named Sam who runs all of our marketing, and he is at like 21, 22 years old, is like one of the biggest cigar nerds on the planet.
Nice.
And he always steals a little bit of something right when it comes in. And so like if something's off, like him or Alan, who runs our production, works with our factory to kind of run over production and everything like that, they all smoke that stuff when it first comes in to make sure that it's, it's got to taste right.
Well, and with more experience too of certain blends, like if we get another batch of like say that BS Gold, and like you guys with this stuff, you might say, okay, no, this is right, but it's not ready yet.
Yeah.
And in about 4 weeks, now we can ship it out to retailers. You know what I mean? Because it's not quite there yet.
Here's the thing. We're a new cigar company. So when I'm meeting a lot of retailers, it's one of the first times that they're smoking a lot of my product.
Right.
And so I have to make sure that when I hand them a sample and I say, hey, smoke this Herencia Maduro, it's really good. It needs to be really good.
Yeah.
And it needs to taste the way it's going to taste for the consumers, because I mean, we've all have examples of cigar companies that for one reason or another, when we first started smoking them, they tasted one way, and then we smoked another batch or another box or something later, and we're like, this doesn't even taste like the same cigar.
Yeah.
This isn't even, it's completely different. And, how do you make a cigar company last generations, right? It's consistency. If you look at the biggest names in our industry that have the biggest reputations, Padron's probably the best one in the fact that they don't make a lot of different blends. I mean, realistically, when you look at it, they basically make 3 blends, slight age variations on a couple of them, and the family reserves.
Different color wrapper.
It's 26 and 64s. That's what they make.
26, 64, the core line, and then that Damaso.
And the Damaso. But at the end of the day, they're not, I love them. They're not, to me, they're not the best tasting cigars out there. They're great. I'm going to get a lot of crap for saying that. But the one thing I love about
You're entitled to your opinion.
Padron's is every single time I pick one up, I know exactly what it's going to taste like.
Yeah.
I know exactly how it's going to smell.
Yeah.
So
they won't
why am I
ship it
willing to
until
spend
you get
$20 for it? Is because I know every single time I'm going to get, and it is an amazing cigar. It's just not in my top 5.
Yeah.
I'm going to get an amazing cigar, and it's going to be consistent. And I don't care how much money you have, whether you're, living paycheck to paycheck, or you live in a $4 million house, your money is valuable to you.
For sure.
And whether you're smoking a $5 cigar or you're smoking a $150 cigar, you want that cigar to smoke right. And there's so many great cigars out there. Like you don't need to, the joke is always, life's too short to smoke a bad cigar, especially now.
Jesus.
I mean, think about it. Think about all the great cigars out there. I got 2 chances.
Oh, I thought you meant because of COVID.
Well, no, that. But you got basically 2 chances with a customer to give them a great cigar and a consistent cigar. But if I give him one good one and it's a brand new brand, and then he smokes one right afterwards, and he's like, man, that didn't taste as good. He's going to think twice about when he goes to buy that cigar again, because he's like, well, the first one was good. The second one, it was okay. Man, I really just want a consistent cigar right now. I'm going to get something else. And he's going to pass you over a couple times.
That's for sure.
But that's why I usually recommend people try a cigar more than once.
Oh,
because
2 or 3 times.
Because you can have it. Because I mean, there was a cigar I smoked. The first time I smoked it, I didn't smoke more than half an inch of it. I couldn't stand the taste of it. And then a couple years later, I went back and revisited that cigar. I was a little nervous about trying that cigar again, but whatever the issue was with that first cigar was not there the second time.
Got
so
you.
The second time around, that cigar tasted great. But if I'd have gone off, if people sometimes go off just their first experience with a cigar, there's a lot of stuff they're going to miss out on.
No, of course. And listen, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be the cigar company's fault, for the consistency. Sometimes it's how was your day? Yeah. Oh, did you get yelled at by your boss? Did you miss a project? Did your wife made at you? Yeah. Did you not eat dinner? And then you're like, I just need to relax with a cigar. Yeah, the cigar's probably not going to taste that great. Hey, did you just get a promotion? Was it?
Well, it's like that same thing with like being on vacation.
Exactly. Oh, how many guys come into the retail store and say, I had a cigar on a beach in Mexico. It was the best Cuban I've ever had. Guess what? A, probably not Cuban.
Yeah.
And B, I don't care what cigar I give you. It's going to taste amazing.
Absolutely.
You got a mojito in one hand. You got girls in bikinis walking in front of your feet are up and no one's calling you.
Bikinis always make things nicer.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who's wearing them.
Right.
A couple of our crowd here, if they put them on,
let's shift to the whiskey. Did you look up the whiskey at all, Nate?
No, I didn't.
All right. So here's a little bit of story on the Joseph Magnus. This is one of those, if you look at the bottle, it's established and then reestablished. So Jared, look at the top of the bottle there.
It actually says that on the
boom and boom.
On the little neck tag.
Established when?
1892, reestablished in 2015.
So here's the quick story here. So it was passed down, but it's interesting. Let's see if I find this. I think this is where I found it out. So the Jimmy Turner, who reestablished it in 2007. He found this. It was reestablished in 2015, but 2007. He found a bottle of bourbon in the closet while cleaning out his parents' home after his mother died. The bottle was, in fact, 100-plus-year-old bourbon passed down through generations. This discovery got Turner to learn more about his great-grandfather, Joseph A. Magnus. Magnus made bourbon, rye, whiskey, gin, and rum. And then the investigation led to more, and both in terms of the family tree and whiskey leads to source some similar in flavor profile to that whiskey. And then a year and a half ago, this was published. And if you guys want to look it up, it's on the whiskeywash.com. But this is 2017. So 2015, he opened up Joseph A. Magnus and Company, which is a distillery, does bourbon and gin. And it's in Washington, D.C., of all places.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Not what you think about when you think bourbon country.
No, you don't.
No.
But so Joseph Magnus straight bourbon. And then there was also a Murray Hill Club bourbon. Now they have more. Like there's a Joseph A. Magnus cigar blend. There's another one, I forget what it is. This is what I would consider like the gray label, right? Which is just the straight bourbon. But it's very, as they call it, historic. It's a very old fashioned looking bottle, which I absolutely love. But that's kind of the story with it. And they finished this, and there's they say 100 proof. Is that what this is right now? So 100 proof, triple cask finish. It's finished in sherry and cognac casks. So I mean, it's definitely a little bit unique as far as their finishing process, which I like. It is a pricier bottle.
Yes.
And the state of Ohio is what, Nate?
$85.99.
Right. So it's up there.
Again, thank you, Bobby Crow,
for
donating
for that. But that being said, it says that it's blended from many different, not many, but I mean, age range, 9 to 18 years, they say.
So I have a question for you, and this is because I'm not a bourbon guy. I'm a self-proclaimed non-bourbon guy. You said it's not what you would call like bourbon country. Is that still the case now with all the micro distilleries all over the country? Is the traditional bourbon country of like Kentucky, Tennessee, is that still considered bourbon country? Or because you have unbelievable distilleries in places like DC, Colorado's got Leopold Brothers. I know up in New York, there's some really good ones.
Well, you have MGP, which is in Indiana.
I can only assume, though, here's the kicker, is that there is, I think, the bourbon country or the bourbon trail.
Yeah.
Where it's typically going to be what we were talking about, where it's traditionally made, aged in the 53-gallon barrels.
Very similar styles.
You've got, you're using different water sources down there, different grain sources, but it's all kind of coming from that. When you start off something in 2015 and you're coming out with it and you have, say it is 9 years.
Yeah.
Clearly you're sourcing it. So that is something. I did, when I was researching this bottle, there was rumor that it was MGP, but again, it's not really disclosed that I could find. So someone out there listening might know a little bit more about Joseph A. Magnus whiskey, but I mean, they're sourcing it.
Yeah.
And it's not always from Kentucky.
Gotcha.
Indiana is a big sourcing area from MGP.
Like I said, I always wonder that because like obviously when I think of bourbon country, I think of that Southern Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee area, but there are phenomenal distilleries now all over the country.
But you still have a lot of people that are under the misconception that bourbon can only come from Kentucky.
Right.
No, it has to come from the United States.
Gotcha.
But it can come from anywhere in the United States. But it's when you look at everything that has to go into it in order for it to actually be called bourbon. Like if you watch that Neat documentary, like it is the
great documentary.
It is the
really
most
cool
regulated product on the market. And that's how we actually got a lot of our patent laws. It all started with bourbon. Didn't start with medicine or food. It started with
Bottle
bourbon.
and bond.
Even before Bottled and Bond.
Before that.
But yeah, Bottled and Bond Act of 1897 was one. But even before that, with it having to be new oak barrels, has to come off the still less than 160, has to go into the barrel less than 140.
So they just call it whiskey if it doesn't follow some of that. Like, so if I'm a newer, it's just not bourbon, it's just a whiskey. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of the mash bill, Nate, if you want to explain.
Yeah, the mash bill
is a
has to be
big part of it.
At least 51% corn.
Yeah.
The more you know. See, this is educational for me as well.
That's good, though. That's good. Those questions are always good.
Yeah, and it has to be at least 2 years.
2
in order
years.
for it to be bourbon. Younger than that, they call it whiskey.
This is interesting, too, because it is, I mean, again, going into the smaller batches, it says this is batch number, and it's handwritten on there. Batch number 62, and this is bottle number 201 out of 892. So I imagine as you see different batches, you may have slightly different just tweaks as far as the flavor.
That is the one thing I've noticed when it goes bourbon versus like I'm a self-proclaimed rum guy, is you do see more variants batch to batch in bourbons and whiskeys.
Yeah. On the small batch, or especially the single barrel.
Yes. Absolutely.
Whereas like in rum is usually a lot of mixed. So they'll take multiple batches and they'll mix it together. So you get a more consistent product.
Or even that Solera process.
Yeah. So it's done a little differently. So that's something that's just new for me, getting more into bourbons and stuff like that, is just, the consistency difference between single barrels.
What do you think of this, Jared?
It's really good. It's hot because it's a bourbon whiskey and I'm just not used to that, but it's really good. It's super smooth.
Yeah.
I can still sip on it, which means it's a smooth, good bourbon for me.
Especially when it's 90 degrees.
Yeah. I mean, it's everything. So it's a really good bourbon. If I drank bourbon, this would be something I would drink.
Yeah. Nate, what do you think?
This is one of those where at 100 proof, like it doesn't taste like 100 proof. It
not
tastes
as hot as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. You don't get this huge spice or what we call cinnamon.
It's warm, though.
It's warm. You definitely get some warmth there. But it definitely has a little bit, for me, I get a little bit of sweetness at the right up front, mixture of, and this could be with one of the cask finishes. I get kind of like a little bit of cherry with oak, which would obviously make sense.
Sure, yeah.
Not a whole lot of vanilla notes, which for some distilleries,
banana, this is the first bourbon I've ever had where I've actually, like, people always say banana and I never get it.
That TX that we had from Texas, huge banana.
See, and I hate banana, but I actually like this. It's actually really good.
Yeah.
So
I think you hit it right on the head. I mean, I don't have much to add, honestly. I think it's very good. I get a little bit of that fruit, you know what I mean? But it's got warmth, but not that spice. It's not like really a warm spice that I get from a lot of the bourbons lately that we've been drinking.
And it doesn't have the type of viscosity that just completely coats your whole palate.
No,
like it does not have a long finish to it. But then again, at being 100 proof, like you don't get the quote unquote Kentucky hug. Like you don't feel it going down into your chest or into your stomach. Like it all stays right up in your palate,
which is why I think I like it, because I'm not a bourbon guy. Yeah. That's what I don't like about it, is I don't get that. Like I'm not sitting here feeling like I'm breathing fire.
I want to add a little. I'm going to pour.
So it stays in your face. It's not a warm Kentucky hug. It's like more of like in your face Washington D.C. thing, right?
I like that. I like that terminology, the warm Kentucky hug. I've never heard that though.
I'm going to pour some more.
This is a smack in your face.
A splash of water.
It's like a smack in the face, like a White House right now for a lot of people.
Because we've had some whiskeys.
You're not going to turn the show political, are you?
Hopefully not.
We'll see what the topics are that we're going to go over.
We've had some
the lightning round of topics.
We've had some whiskeys though where we're like, okay, neat, yeah, it's pretty good whiskey. Let me see what happens if I, put some water in it, open it up, and like, oh nope, should have left it neat.
I think this one will be good if you do that. I'm interested to see what you think. But as we get to the end of part one, and I know because again, we always when we have like a cigar person on here, an expert, if you will.
How long you been in the industry?
So I have worked for companies for 6 years, and then I managed a retail store for 4 in Colorado.
So 10 years in the industry.
So 10 years. This would have been, I'm really mad that PCA got canceled this year, because this is the first trade show I've missed.
You would have been excited
in 11 years.
And with a new company.
Yeah. We weren't going to be there this year. We made the decision in January not to participate.
I never got to go
in PCA only because we were really changing our company focus, and we really wanted to take that time and that energy and the financial resources for it to really focus on things like bringing in new reps and making sure the quality product and getting it out there, and really kind of giving that back to our retailers.
The opposite of what Steve Saka did the first year, where he just showed up with no cigars.
Yeah. Don't.
I love that. Yeah. I love what he did. I love what he did. And I also love what you did, as far as like taking your time. And I also love that Steve Saka with Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust, the first year he was there. I remember watching those interviews. We talked about it, I think, when we smoked some of his cigars, and he had couches.
He sold out orders. And no one took. And listen, I like Steven. I think he makes some really great stuff. To me, though, that is one of my issues with the industry, though.
Yeah.
Is that a guy comes in with no problem. I mean, he could have put.
He's got a name in the industry, though, where Al Micallef does not.
No, and exactly. And Steve can get away with that. And listen, we all knew that Steve was not going to put dog turds in a box and ship them out. You knew it was going to be a quality product.
Oh, absolutely.
And you knew that the name behind it was at least going to give it some traction when it hit stores.
Yeah.
It's just, for me, I look at it and I'm like, man, like,
I loved it.
Hey, it's
I didn't go to that show, but I mean, I loved it.
So one thing I will say, since I know Dan's watching, I want to try to get before we get out of here. So we have this, it's called our passport program. So one of the things that we did when we moved from what?
No, just
talk into the mic.
Oh, into the mic. Yeah. Gotcha. I'm getting used to this.
You don't have anything on your face.
When we didn't go to the show, we wanted to make sure that we found ways to give back to our retailers and to our consumers. And one way we did it was our Micallef Cigars tasting passport.
Okay.
So this is available. You can get them directly from us. You can download them online, or you can get them from any of our Micallef retailers.
Okay.
And what it does is it's really cool. So it's got a page for each one of our blends in there, and you can put it tells you a little bit about the cigar. It tells you the blend, the makeup, tasting notes. You put your band in there. You write the name, the date, where you got it. And then once you fill this up, you send it back into us, or any of our reps can qualify it, and you get entered into win $1,000 gift card to the cigar shop of your choice, as long as they sell Micallef. So we made a commitment in January to focus our company on our retailers and our and our consumer partners, and that's why we didn't go to PCA this year, because we wanted to really focus on that. And this was one of the programs that we came out with to kind of do that.
This band.
Yeah, save the band. I got a passport for you.
I do want to mention one more thing about the band before we get to the rating here is
it's a gorgeous looking band.
It's a gorgeous band. It looks like it's done by Cigar Rings, which they do fantastic work. I mean, the embossment, the colors. Cigar Rings.
No, it's Cigars. Or Cigar Rings.
This one's Cigar Rings. So I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. Obviously, it's a high end band. It's like very crisp. You've got the kind of like not a matte, but you got it pops, right? It definitely pops. There's no mistakes on this thing. It's very precise and it's gorgeous. It's very regal looking. Very
and that crest is
traditional looking.
Al's. That crest is Al's family crest.
Okay,
That's
so
the Micallef family
you got
crest
some
on
story
it.
behind it
Yeah.
as well, which I like. And on the inside, so Sean's smoking one, and he actually, or was smoking one. He pointed out to me, and I
awesome.
always like this, is that when you on the inside of the band, sometimes if you take it off, especially after you've smoked it, as you're enjoying it, and it kind of summarizes. Not only does it have your website on there, but it summarizes the whole, what you were saying, the partnership between the Micallef family and the Sanchez family.
Sanchez Gomez family. Yeah.
Sanchez Gomez family.
And it's funny because obviously
Gomez Sanchez.
Al's name is on the brand, right?
Yeah.
But if you were to ask Al, and if you were to ask anyone with the company, like, it is 100% is a partnership. It is not, they don't work for Al. It is a partnership. They allow us to sell these amazing cigars. And so it is a true partnership.
And Avi's asking, put it on the screen. So again, we're not, we don't have a producer or anything like that. So I don't.
You want to just walk up to the camera?
No, we'll maybe
we'll post a picture on it.
We'll post it with Kyle's Kyle B. Smith photo on Instagram. We'll post one of these pictures as well. I don't know, Kyle, if you got your camera still, to take a shot of the band, maybe the front and back, take two bands, but it's got a cool handshake on there, and it says an alliance between two great families. I think it's cool that you're sticking with not only Al with his family crest on there, but you do have, like, you're not shying away from that partnership. You got both names on the band. You're really pushing that there is a lot of heritage there. And now you've got kind of two family stories, which is cool.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's important. I mean, listen, we living in the industry, in the cigar industry that we have now, it's not rocket science to go out there and have your own cigar.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think with anything, you have to have that story behind it. That's what separates us from other companies. And, with just Al Micallef, that's a harder sell point from the fact that it's just a guy from Texas that wanted a cigar company. And it's not just that he wanted to start one, he wanted to start the right cigar company. And he wanted to partner with the right people to make the right product. And we're not going to shy away from the fact that Al is not in the factory rolling cigars himself. It's done by another family who has a history and makes quality things. And we want to showcase them as much as we can. So
very big history. So let's do this. And because you're on here, and we always start with the person that, gets paid to represent this cigar.
Have you ever had a rep not rated a 10 out of 10 for their own cigar?
Just everyone, all of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
Is this like a pizza review from Barstool Sports? Do I have to give like a point in there? Is there any rules behind it?
People do that. You don't have to. It's out of 10. You can do just a nice round number out of 10. We've had people take it out to the hundredths, which we don't need to do.
I would give this
here's the thing. You do, before you do that.
Okay.
We need to get your cigar rating out of 10, the whiskey rating out of 10, and then the pairing out of 10. And if you want to elaborate, you can.
All right. So cigar, I would go an 8 because I think it's really good. I do think that they are going to get a little bit better as we talk about sitting a little bit. I think these are going to get a little bit better. The Habanos out of the box are unbelievable. So I would give it an 8. The bourbon, I will give, from a strict tasting standpoint, I would give it probably like a 7.5.
7.5. Okay.
7.5. From a pairing standpoint, this is where I get biased because I think bourbons and whiskeys pair terribly with cigars. It's a personal preference. And I have reasons behind it, but it's a long rant that I get into. From a total pairing, it's like a 3.
Oof.
But to use a bourbon pairing with it, if you have to give it a bourbon, I would say it's probably like a good solid 7, 8.
So, okay.
As a total pairing, if you had to go against any type of pairing I could choose with this, it's a 3.
Wow. All right. That's fair.
But I will say, I'm a bias. I think bourbons and scotches and whiskeys pay terribly with cigars.
Thank you for joining us on the Bourbon and BS podcast.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, it doesn't mean I don't like it. It's just from a pairing standpoint. I've been eyeballing my rum the whole time. So,
you can drink that brew
round 2
for
round 2,
part 2. Yeah, exactly.
Round 2.
Nate, how about you? The ratings here.
So I'm gonna put the cigar to 7.
Okay.
Which some people sit there and go, 7, that's like a C. What? It's a good cigar.
Hey, I passed college with a C, so let's just
amen to that.
C's for degrees, man.
Yeah.
No, I give it a 7. It's a very good cigar. I would be interested to see how this would taste. Sitting in a humidor for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
Just resting a little bit because like you said, these only came out a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be interested to try it. Definitely a cigar that I'm going to come back to.
Okay.
Like if I have the chance, if this is something that one day is on the shelf at Tinder Box, like this is something I'm definitely going to try again.
Okay.
Because I do like the cigars from Micallef that the Tinder Box does carry. I do like
from the Grande Bold series.
Yes, I do like the Modafina. I do like the Sumatra. Between the Modafina, Sumatra, and Habano, that's right there how I'd rank those three. Like the Modafina was my favorite, and then the Sumatra.
Fair enough.
The whiskey, it definitely has a good flavor to it. Adding some water actually increased the amount of spice in it.
Did it?
Yeah, it did. The finish, it actually made it last a little bit longer on the palate. So that was interesting. Not what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting the heat or cinnamon notes to increase.
Cinnamon, that's what I had this flavor that I've been sitting here the whole time I'm drinking. I'm trying to get it. Cinnamon's it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I'd give the whiskey by itself a 7. If I take price into consideration, knock off at least 1 point because
it's an expensive bottle.
It's a good bottle. Is it an 80? I mean, with tax, you're looking at over $90. That's an expensive bottle of whiskey, and I know I've got some great bottles at home that cost half that, and I would go to over this.
Okay.
So then with the pairing, they both have a nice little spice characteristic to it, so I think they go well. Neither one overpowers the other, so I'm going to give the pairing a 7 as well. So 7s across the board.
7s across the board. I think this is this is not a 90-degree summer pairing.
No, this is not.
It's not the worst one we've ever done.
It's not the worst one. This is what I'm envisioning when I smoke this cigar and drink this whiskey. Is like a nice fall day, and I just had a nice steak dinner. Yep. And I had one of those full-bodied cabs with the steak.
Yeah.
And
then needs a little bit of fruitiness in whatever you're drinking to kind of bring it back in.
Yeah. So if it wasn't recording this on July 8th and it had still 88 degrees according to my watch, and it is pushing 9 o'clock, typical Ohio weather. But I would say the cigar, I'm going to give it, for what it is, for $12, $13, right? On average, you'd say for this Toro size, it might taste, even better, but I'm going to give it an 8+. I think this is a solid cigar.
Yeah.
I'm very pleased with this. It's different. Even the makeup that you have on there with a Nicaraguan Maduro, as you call it, we don't know what seed it is, but Nicaraguan Maduro wrapper, you have that Ecuadorian Sumatra binder, and you're throwing in the Nicaraguan, which I love Nicaraguan tobacco, and then it was Honduran. And the filler blend. I think you guys kind of knocked it out of the park with this. Now, will it sell, or people grab it off the shelf with, it looks very, very nice. Herencia, I don't know what that even means. So, you're going to have a little bit of cluelessness, I think, from some buyers, from people that don't look it up necessarily online if you're not really pushing it. But you look at that, you have to smoke it or have a retailer push it, throw it in a pack, whatever it might be, say, hey, you like full body, I really like this one here. And you're going to have a little bit of a push on it. I think it's an 8+, but looking at it, again, I don't know, when you look at Herencia, you don't know what it is.
Well,
you know what I mean? But
with our whole portfolio, there is an education level with the infancy that our company's at. With every one of our blends, there's an education level that goes for most of our consumers.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it's a great cigar. I really have enjoyed it because I was waiting for it to turn bitter, and it never
Even
did.
At the end, it never really
still hasn't.
Did.
Yeah.
It's a great flavor profile. The whiskey, I'm actually liking this because I feel like on the podcast, especially, we've had a lot of bottles that are, and I don't know what the mash bill is on this, and I'd be curious to know, but I don't get that. I think we've had too many bottles recently that are very
corn heavy.
Exactly. You know where I was
too
going
much
with that.
sweetness to them.
This wasn't sweet.
No, but there's this is something that after a steak dinner, you've already had maybe a cocktail before. This is the way I have steak dinners. You already had a cocktail beforehand.
Or two.
That's my appetizer, or two. Depends who's buying. And then, you get to the steak dinner, your classic thing, you get some asparagus there, you got maybe a potato or something on the side.
With your 1 pound.
I thought you were talking about flavor notes, and I was like,
no, I don't get no. But after the fact, this is
how big a pour was that?
I think this is a great nightcap whiskey.
Yeah,
I agree with
think
that.
this, because you got that warm feeling there. There's not a whole lot of spice. There's not a lot of corn. This is something that kind of rounds out an evening. And I would give this bottle, even at the price point. I mean, it's not something I'm going to stock all the time because of the price point, but this is something I'm going to give, again, an A+.
It's a good bourbon for guys like me who aren't big bourbon or whiskey guys. Like, I think it's a really good one to kind of intro to kind of start off with.
Good flavor.
Yeah.
Especially if you're used to drinking. It is a good flavor, but it's good for guys. Like, usually when I get it is you're looking at it from a, I'm usually when you start off bourbons and whiskeys, you're going sweeter. Like you're starting with those really sweet, more corn heavy caramel notes, like really sweet, because that's easier to kind of get into. This is a good one to say, like, all right, you've done the sweet thing.
Yeah.
You like the sweet thing. You want to continue liking bourbon. Try this.
I would be surprised if this mash bill has more than 60% corn.
Yeah.
I think it's got quite a bit of rye in it.
I think so too.
Because I think the sweetness that I get out of it is from the cask finishes.
And I think that's something that's nice that they're doing with it, is that those different the triple cask finish. Not a whole lot of information that I was able to find about.
Herencia means heritage.
I saw that and I appreciate it. Dan Thompson says that
Thanks,
Herencia means heritage.
6 years with Spanish speaking companies. You think my Spanish would be better?
I took 4 semesters in college, and like you, I passed. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. The pairing is, I'd give it a 9. I think these two go really well together. And again, I mean, I keep going off that example of it's a certain time you do this pairing. And it's not something that if I'm having the guys, or we have couples night or whatever, and we're grilling out and all that stuff, and it's 90 degrees and all that stuff. It's like, we're probably not going to be serving this, out on the patio and everyone's kind of still sweating, even though it's 9 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be like, hey, here, everyone, let's have this Joseph Magnus, and here, I got a great cigar for you. Now, again, if it was 70 degrees, this would start really kind of fitting like the end of the night. Like, hey, what do you have in your glass? Have you had this whiskey? Have you smoked this cigar? We're going to do this tonight. And hopefully, be able to pass out the cigar, pour a glass of all this stuff, and and have that conversation again. I'd give this pairing a 9. I think the two of them really go really well together.
If I have a guy come up to me and I'm in a cigar bar in the middle of October and it's cool, it's crisp day, and a guy says, hey, I'm smoking the Herencia Maduro, give me a bourbon to pair with it, and they specifically want a bourbon, yes, you're 100% right.
I think it's one you can recommend. They'd be pleased with. Yeah, this is not going to steer anyone wrong.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you, Jared. We're going to end part 1
thank you guys,
here.
man. This was awesome.
Guys, want to thank our sponsors that are up on the screen here as we end part 1. Tinder Box at Easton, kind of hook all this up.
Onlyfans.com.
Patreon.com/BourbonBS podcast. That's where you guys can actually contribute to this. We've been saying it for a long time, and I apologize for the delay, but I had a great conversation with our t-shirt guy, and I'll be ordering the t-shirts tomorrow and then getting them to him. Got a great deal on it. Hopefully it doesn't burn me. Too good to be true deal. Maybe too good to be true. We'll find out.
Do they come in like Dominican sizes? Like if you ever ordered t-shirts, like when you work as a cigar company, like they come up in they'll all be XLs and there'll be 5 different sizes. They're like sports bras on me. Like
you and I know what that's like.
They're gonna be if you guys have worn Next Level shirts, Next Level makes a great shirt. It's gonna be a tri-blend Next Level shirt. There's 2 different ones, a 6010 and a 6010A. The A is made in the USA, obviously more expensive. The other ones are not made in the USA, and that's the one I'm going with. So we'll see how they fit.
Commie bastard.
Buying some larges, extra larges, and 2Xs, and we'll see how they fit. We should see them in the next, hopefully 2 weeks. So all the people that are on Patreon.com, thank you for your patience and the continued support, but we'll be getting those t-shirts to you. And with the price point, I actually may be able to get some different colors as well. So really looking forward to that. Hot pink for you.
Yes.
Also, Altadis USA, like I said, I got some Onyx. Tinder Box at Easton has a great special going on, and it's 20+% off, where it's $39.99 for 5 great cigars, including the Romeo Julieta Reserve, as well as the Onyx, and also Monte Cristo Espada in there. There's a brand new Romeo Julieta that we have featured on the podcast recently, the Reserva Real Nicaragua, as well as an Upman Hispaniola. So that's a fantastic deal. Check them out, Tinder Box at Easton. You can email them, eastontinderbox@gmail.com, call them, or stop in, obviously, and while supplies last and through next Tuesday. Guys, thank you very much. Cheers. to part 1. If you're listening on the
that's
a good one. If you're listening on the audio, check out part 2. If you guys are listening live right now, we're going to take a little interlude, but we're going to keep it live. So if you have any questions right now for Jarod or any of us here, definitely throw it up there. But on part 2, we're going to be pulling from today's post on the Facebook community page, Bourbon and BS community page. If you guys want to join, kind of an extension of the podcast where now we're almost 1,100 members. It's fantastic. Great response.
Good for you guys, by the way.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. People are sharing. You do have some of those cigar shots and whiskey shots, but then there's a lot of conversation as well. So we're going to have not necessarily a lightning round, but with having the kind of last minute rescheduling, and luckily Jarod was in town. We've been kicking this around for a while. It worked out. But part 2, we're going to have multiple topics, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. So, guys, thank you very much, and cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Freeze. I'm going to have to use the head real quick.
All right.
Nate, you want to carry us through here?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go grab Jared's rum that he brought.
Yes.
I'll wait for you to come back. Do you use the restroom here?
No, I'm good for right now.
You're good for right now.
I got a bottle right here too, so
you just whip it out. Perfect.
Yeah, there's a reason
for everyone watching. This is what you're supposed to be drinking with your cigars.
See,
this is rum. This is Brugal XV. This is one of my favorites, next to the 1888 from Brugal. If you are not a rum person, you're a bourbon guy, this is what will get you into drinking bourbon. So all of you bourbon guys back there, come up and get some rum. It's free.
See, every time we have Miguel on, we do rum.
Oh, God, I know. Miguel's a big rum guy, too, man.
Yeah, so he brought that bottle of Diplomatico that we had a while back.
The Diplomatico is really good. They got some new ones. They got some limited edition ones that came out really good. But you have the standard Diplomatico, which is one of the best values. Also, if you're ever looking for, like, value, like, the bourbon and whiskey market has just blown up, right, in the United States. And so it's incredibly expensive, especially third market, to get some of these. Rum is still very low in popularity in the United States. So you're getting rums for $20, $30 that if they were bourbons or whiskeys are going to cost you $80, $90, $100.
Yeah.
Like the quality that you're getting for the price point with rum, you can't beat it, man.
Yeah, the most popular rum out there is probably Captain. Because a lot of people like Captain Coke, and then
but Captain's also the reason why a lot of people hate rum is because they had a bad night on Captain and Coke.
Yeah, because they drank too many.
Yeah, like it's you drink, and it's spice. It's more of a cordial. Like I had
the hardest time going back to rum because I was in Chicago on a business trip, and I had a bottle of I think it was Zaya.
Oh, Zaya's like super chocolate. That's one of the best rums to pair with cigars, especially full bodied.
Yeah,
it's chocolatey and it's cream.
Yeah, it was good, great. But I drank half the bottle in one night, and I was drinking it straight up.
Oh, that'll do
in my hotel room. So the next, that's the only time in my life I've ever had a hangover. It was because of drinking that. You know, I had my one trip down to the DR, first night there. Did you hear the story,
dude? Nate, you just change the topic right now, man, because I know stories about that trip, and just please change the topic.
Okay.
Because you will not like it.
Okay.
No, not in a bad way. It's just you had a really great one night, and you had a really terrible next day.
Actually, no, the next day I was fine.
Were you?
Yeah, the next day I was fine. Yeah, I was a little dehydrated, but yeah, the next day I was, still the next day was when we went to the farm, and lunch and dinner that night, and yeah, I was fine. I was fine that next day. The only time I've ever had a hangover was when I
put a little cube in there. It helps.
Was when I drank that half a bottle of rum in Chicago.
So that was my favorite thing about going down the Dominican was everywhere you went, there's a bottle of Brugal Extra Viejo, there's Cokes, and there's water. And all I do, I will drink a bottle of rum a day down the DR.
See, when I was down there that first night for dinner,
can you throw me like one?
The owner of the company, he had ordered a bottle of rum, and I don't even remember what rum it was.
It's Brugal, either 88 or Extra Viejo.
Well,
always Brugal.
This is going back 6 years, so I don't know if it's changed.
Still always Brugal, or it could have been. Was it clear?
I don't remember.
If it's clear, it's Atlantico. If it's not clear, it's Brugal.
Okay, but then the other bottle, which is the one that I drank the entire bottle of, was Scotch.
This is so good.
It was a 12-year Scotch that I drank the bottle of. Because my boss is like, "Hey, let me pour you rum and Coke." And I'm like, I don't really.
Well, and it's not just like a rum and Coke. It's a rum with rum and a little Coke.
Yeah. So I drank that, and then I'm like,
Was he still on the styrofoam cup kick during that time, or was he
No.
was he on glassware at that point?
well, this was at the restaurant. So
he brings his. There might be a few people watching who know who we're talking about, but great guy, makes unbelievable cigars. But he will bring a styrofoam cup to Saga, and they will just fill it up. And it's the greatest thing ever, man. There's nothing like watching literally one of the richest guys there walk in with a styrofoam cup and fill it up with rum and Coke.
See, I don't remember.
But when
that.
it's 90 degrees out and you're drinking a rum and Coke, like, you want a styrofoam cup, man. Like, screw the environment. Like, keeps it insulated. It's nice. Like, he just put those ice cubes in this thing 30 seconds ago and they're gone.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
it's
So we've got two other Micallef cigars that you brought.
yes.
One is the Torcedor.
So one is a
Torcedores,
Torcedores, which is,
if I remember, isn't Torcedor what the name of what they call a roller? Isn't that what?
yes.
Yeah.
So the Torcedor is actually like our, I don't want to say entry level cigar because it's a great quality cigar and it's an unbelievable tasting cigar, but it is definitely our most affordable in our portfolio.
Okay.
But it's awesome.
And the only reason I knew Torcedor was roller is so you remember Ed Paxton had commented earlier at his shop up in Delaware. This is back when Miguel worked for Tarano.
Okay.
They had their master blender there, and they were doing a Torcedor event.
The Roots event.
Yeah,
I remember that.
So
yeah.
they had the cigar where it was just the filler and binder. It had already been in a mold, so it was already pressed. And then it was a competition basically of the customers putting on the wrapper. So like he would actually show you how to put the wrapper on a cigar, and then he would hand you a wrapper leaf, and you had to roll it. Yeah. And then you put your name on the band. It was a white band. You put your name on it, and then at the end of the night, Ed, Miguel, and that roller or the blender, they judged all the cigars. And
it's incredibly difficult. Like, I think
I won.
Did you really?
I actually won. I got a plaque hanging on my basement wall at home, and it's got the blade that they use to trim.
The Chivetta.
Yeah. I haven't had to say that term in a long time. But it has one of those, and it's copper plated because it's got that company's logo for their 50th anniversary cigar, which had a copper band on it. So it's got that and then a plaque, and I have that hanging up on my wall.
That's pretty cool. You know what? I always laugh, like when you see people who roll cigars, like the cigar roller gets all the, like, they're like the rock stars of the industry, right? Because they're the ones putting on realistically,
because that's what you see.
Because that's what you see, and they make it look so effortless, effortless. Like they sit there. I mean, these guys are doing 200 plus cigars a day, and it looks so fluid and it's so easy to go about it. But when you actually try to do it, you have to like make sure that the tobacco is wet enough that it's pliable, but not too wet that it's damp, but then not too dry that it rips. And you have to, it's elastic, so you have to stretch it out. I mean, it's incredibly difficult.
We had one guy at that
mine
event.
look like, I'm from Colorado, mine always look like blunts when I make mine. Like I try to finish mine, I'm sitting there rolling it like,
well,
yeah, exactly.
Well, there was one customer there who actually ripped 2 leaves.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised they let him do a third.
No, it's because you do it and you have to like stretch it out just the right amount. And if you stretch it out too much, I mean, it will tear right down the middle.
Yeah. And then what's this other one that we have here?
So the other one is called our Migdalia. That's actually our number 1. It's our smaller size of it. We make 2 sizes in the torpedo, and then we make a special edition of it. The Migdalia was actually our second most popular cigar amongst our ambassadors. So I mentioned the ambassador program earlier. During this whole COVID thing in March, with March Madness not happening, we had our own tournament called Micallef Madness, where we took our top 32 SKUs in our portfolio and we put them into brackets, and our ambassadors voted on what was most popular.
Okay.
And it came down between the Migdalia and the Leanda. So it was really cool. Like, that's one of the things that we try to do is get people involved on our ambassador page. So, you know, they pick the winner there. We actually have a cigar coming out at the end of the month called our Micallef A, which was actually named by our ambassadors. It used to be called the to be named Maduro, but then we actually let them vote and name it. And they voted to have it named the ambassador, but because of Davidoff, we can't call it anything ambassador or even a translation of ambassador. And so it became the Micallef A.
And the foot band has that handshake that's on the inside of the band of the first cigar, the Herencia that we smoked. It's got that on the outside of the foot band.
And actually, if you look at the cool thing about the band is if you actually look at the side, there's actually a cutout of Cuba
Yeah,
on both
I see
sides of
that.
it.
Yeah.
So the tobacco kind of shows through on it. It's really, really cool.
I don't think I've ever seen that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. So one of our guests, for people who can't hear, just asked about our ambassador program again. Yeah. So just go to mcalefcigars.com, and up in the top, there's an ambassador link. Click on it to apply to be an ambassador, and it's got all the information. It's free. Give it like 2 weeks, and you'll get your really cool coin in the mail. As long as it's a certificate, it's a really cool program. So,
What are we smoking for part 2 here?
I think because of the time, I'm lighting up the Torcedores.
I'm smoking the Toastadors, but
Let's do it.
you want to do the Toastadors?
Yeah. Thank you.
So,
just because I know eventually, like if we just smoked this one, then before we ended part 2,
you're still gonna light that
we'd
up.
still light this
We'll
one up
find
still. So this one might, because this one's
Find
almost
out.
a Churchill, right? Like a box press
Yeah, it's a
Churchill.
box press Churchill.
And this will last part 2 probably.
Mhm.
Who knows how long this goes? We may have to light up the third cigar.
All right.
But
And this has a San Andreas Sumatra wrapper. It's a Honduran.
Wait till the podcast starts.
Oh.
They can hear on the audio.
Oh, they're just hearing the audio. Oh, okay. Stay
This is
tuned.
the behind the scenes.
this is the part
this
where
is
this is the
bonus.
part where the people that view live actually get a little bonus.
Oh,
That's what this is.
Oh, I like it.
This is between the podcasts.
Well, how about I just do it twice for these guys? I don't want them just sitting here thinking that we're not doing anything.
No, they can wait.
Okay.
Start up here. All right, this is the time. So right now, if you guys want to share it again for part 2, if you're just tuning in, this is where we grow the community. If you guys want to be a part of the Bourbon and BS community page, just look it up on Facebook, and I will approve you. And this is where part 2 tonight is actually listener
As long as you're
or
not trying to
community
sell something.
page topics. So share it if you guys think that if you guys are enjoying it, obviously, but also if you guys want to share it to people individually, if you want to share it on your personal page, certain groups that you might be a part of, you think that would enjoy this. I'm about to switch over to that rum as well and check it out.
Well, so we have one of our viewers drinking the rum. What do you think about the rum?
Take a minute to get the palate away from the bourbon.
Right.
but it is good.
Are you a rum guy usually?
I don't really drink a lot of rum.
No. So, but this is. Do you agree that this would be a good kind of transition from like bourbons and?
Yeah, it didn't turn me like, oh shit. Like,
Yeah. Well, a lot of guys think they're too sweet, and there is some rums out there that are sugar bombs, and they're just,
Or the
Yeah.
artificially flavored one we had a few weeks
Bumbu.
ago.
We had Bumbu, but it was the original,
Not the
not
XO.
the XO.
not the XO. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we want to do the XO next time we have Miguel, because we're that Bumbu's got a lot of banana.
so you were
Yeah.
just in the heat.
It's a lot more refreshing, isn't it? Yeah.
All right, let's get started here on part 2. Guys, thank you for sticking with us here, and we're going to get started on part 2 for 126.
I sweat right in my butt crack.
Beautiful. Say it into the microphone. No, don't. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 126, part 2. Still in the garage here with Jarod Saunders from Micallef Cigars.
That's me.
I'm still getting used to saying. 2 months in with this new company, years of experience in the industry.
You're getting used to saying it. You should. I have to call people on a daily basis, and I catch myself on a daily basis.
Dude,
I'm
I
like,
still have to think about working at Tinder Box now for 7.5 years to not say, thank you for calling 2 Men in a Truck. This is Steve.
you know how long it took me to record my voicemail on my phone because I kept screwing it up. I
Yeah.
kept being like, "Hi, thanks for calling Jared from gosh darn, damn it." What?
From where? I need some.
No, we're good. We've
Uh,
given enough hints on here. I wonder if anyone will actually figure it out. I mean, if you
well-
follow me on Instagram or if you know me at all and you know Nate, I mean, you know.
All right. So with part 2, so we had a little bit of a schedule. Not snap. We had a reschedule. So we were fortunate enough that Jarod was in the area because you're based out of Chicago, but Columbus is part of your territory. I've known Jarod for many years. I'm a Chicago fan. He actually was
We watched
here.
the World Series together.
Yeah, we
man.
did. Actually. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm happy to have him on because we were kicking around with the former company and then it just never really lined up. And then now with the new company, this is perfect timing, I think, because being a newer company in the last 5 years, happy to have you on. But this is something that in part 2, we're going to be going to the community page. So
Let's
there
do it.
is Bourbon and BS community page, which is an extension off of the podcast. We started it back in, I think, November, October of last year, something like that. And we got about almost 1,100 members. and it's an active community. So if you guys are on Facebook, obviously if you're watching this and you're not a member of the community page and you want to join, just request membership, and tonight I'll approve you. If you guys are listening on the audio, which we're on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many others, check it out. And we're live on Facebook every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. and it goes for 2 to 3 hours. We'll thank our sponsors for part 2 as well. It's Tinder Box at Easton, Altadis USA, BS Cigar Company, and obviously you guys out there that are doing the patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. You can contribute $1, $5, $100, whatever you guys want to do. And we're going to get some swag out to you. We've been saying it for a while, had some snafus in the world, and slowed us down.
Just a little bit of a delay lately.
A little bit of a delay on
anything
everything.
coming from China, which is
everything. So thank you to sponsors, and thank you guys for listening. Share it if you're listening again on audio. Share it to people that you think would enjoy it. Part 2 is a little different. Jared, I know you've listened to the podcast, but I don't think you've listened to it necessarily in entirety. So I don't know where you catch it.
I always listen to it when I'm driving. Usually,
is it the cigar and whiskey side, or is it the part 2?
I listened. I don't think I've ever really listened to the part 2 side of things.
Well, welcome.
I always listen to the first part, but I always do it like in pieces because I'm driving. So like I'll listen to like 30 minutes before I go to a store, and then I'll listen, and then I'll pause it, and then I got to figure out where I'm at, and then I'll come back to it. So it's always kind of in chunks. It's never sit down and
which is a 3-hour podcast. I listen to like the Joe Rogan podcast. It's kind of the same thing.
I just finished one today, and it took me like 2 weeks to get through it because I was just driving, and it,
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I don't feel like listening to it. I'm like, I'll get back to it.
It's a lot, and especially some of his guests are really interesting. But like, I just finished the Elon Musk second interview today, and like, I mean, that dude's not exactly like the most energetic person on the planet. So like,
no, it's a casual conversation. So I like it. The Bill Burr one is the one that you need to check out.
Oh, he smokes cigars on. I was trying to figure out what he was smoking on that though, but no,
I don't know. They refer to a previous one that someone had given them cigars, but so I'm smoking right now for part 2. Here is the Micallef. Explain this.
So this is the Tosadors.
Mm-hmm.
What we were Nate and I were kind of talking about a little bit. This is our most what did I didn't say budget friendly. I said this is our
entry level.
This is our entry level cigar. This is a great cigar if you've never had a Micallef cigar to really get in behind.
I already like it.
It's definitely our most affordable cigar in our portfolio. It is a mild to medium. It's got a San Andreas Sumatra wrapper on there. It's got a
very interesting
Honduran filler. Now, this is the cool part about the Honduran binder. Now, the fillers where it gets really unique because we have Nicaraguan, Dominican, and Peruvian filler in there.
That's that unique taste that I'm getting.
So it gives it like a really unique.
It's not overpowering though. Like some.
No.
Because I can only think of off the top of my head, I can only think of one other cigar I've had that had Peruvian tobacco in it.
Monte Cristo Platinum.
Oh, did they? Oh,
that one.
I forgot about that one. I forgot about that one.
What was the one you were thinking?
The Upman Ingot Rose.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had that one.
Yeah, that had Peruvian tobacco in the filler as well.
Oh,
all right. So we're gonna start this. So we did something with this Ray Cheshire World Series. Is that like the World Cup? No, it's not.
I do like that Mchale spelled my name wrong.
Did he? Yeah.
That's my
Mchale Stewart's listening.
That's my friend.
Yeah, she's also with the company.
Yeah.
Was with the company and is with the company.
I'll drink to that one.
You'll drink to that one. All right.
We call that 3 generations right there.
My goodness. So we went to the community page. So going back to this, let's fire it off. So this is not necessarily a lightning round. We did a Q&A session before from the listeners. This is something where it's difficult sometimes to come up with topics on episode 126, because there's been 125 so far. And
is that how that works?
If you guys start talking about potted plants though in one episode, you will lose me as a listener.
I'm gonna shoot for that now.
Unless I need to fight.
I'll have Liz on. I'll come home and there's another plant. Now she's bought some fake plants because there's certain parts of the house that I'm learning that doesn't get enough sunlight, but she still wants a plant there.
Learn.
And it's
if
me
only
learning
she was on the
that
podcast
says
to help you.
That's great. Do I like it? Sure. Don't say sure ever when when your girlfriend or significant other says, "Do you like this?" You say sure, and it may not go the way you think it's going to go. So the first one is relevant to this. So the topic, Tony Barbuto, who has been on the podcast over a year ago, situational adaptation. Case in point, when a guest has to reschedule. Perfect for this podcast. But I'll go to you, Jared, on this one. Is that, you are on the road a lot, and I can assume it never goes smoothly. I think a lot of things with this industry
never goes smoothly.
It's one of I guess less and less professions that are the old school traveling salesperson. You know, so you're on the road,
100%.
you're trying to set up appointments, you're trying to make your route. So you're now this week you're in the Columbus area or the Ohio area. I don't know what's your region for this week.
So usually when I come to Columbus, usually I will do it Monday. I drive from Chicago. I'll hit Toledo on Monday afternoon, like early afternoon, late afternoon. I'll end the night in Columbus. I'll do Columbus Tuesday. Wednesday I'll head up to Cleveland. I'll do Cleveland Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday morning, and head home. This week's a little weird because I have some family obligations in Indiana, so I'm doing Columbus Tuesday through Thursday.
Okay.
But no, you're 100% right. Like, we are one of the last industries that you have these traveling salesmen, and I think one of the difficult things that we run into is, I'm not dealing with these big multinational corporations where they have tons of staff. I'm dealing with mom and pop shops where I can set an appointment up 3 weeks, a day before, whenever, and you can swear I'm always dead on Tuesdays at noon. But when I walk in, a million customers walk in.
Yeah.
And you just don't know what's going to happen. And so as a rep, you have to kind of, you have to deal with that. And it's not always easy, and it can throw a whole, chink in your chain for the whole week. I've had guys that are huge accounts that don't even show up for meetings. That's always really fun, and that makes you really happy for your week.
Makes you feel good about yourself.
Makes you feel great about yourself.
Memorable.
Especially because as a sales guy,
you know,
every week we set goals for ourselves and say, like, all right, I need to sell X dollar amount of product for this week, just to kind of keep us on pace, because, I don't have a boss that looks over my shoulder every day, and I'm very fortunate about that. What?
Talking to Mike.
Oh, sorry. I'm
Shannon's got that role tonight.
Thanks, Shannon. And so
crowd participation.
It's one of those things that you set those goals. And so if I have an account that's usually a big spender with mine, and I go in there, and I'll probably get that order the next week or the week after. But when they don't show up, like, it just kind of sucks your whole week out of you. And you're just like, especially if it happens on a Monday or Tuesday. And
what do you do with that, though? I mean, because I think that's something that can be translated to a lot of things. It's like you feel forgotten, especially if they don't communicate. So if you set up an appointment, right, and it's 3 weeks in advance, you're like, hey, I'm going to be in town. Very important. Not necessarily they're a big buyer, but it's something that you're really trying to communicate and really make a good impression. Not that you don't on every customer, but you're trying to get that. All right, so this is one that I really want to expand the brand. I want to expand the sales, benefit them, benefit me, benefit the company. Obviously everyone hopefully wins in that, but you show up and they're not there.
So I have two ways that I kind of do my schedule is I do kind of 50-50 on appointments. And the reason I do that is because I have certain customers that I have to make appointments with. Mm-hmm. And then I have a lot of customers I don't necessarily need to do.
Some accounts will probably be like, get out.
I have some guys that won't let me in the store. And now I've known them long enough now that I know when it's okay and things like that.
Yeah.
But I will purposely set appointments when I know I need to talk to something. And if I call you and I say, hey, I need an appointment, it's because I need you to set time aside, or I'm asking you to set time aside for me, where
you're not just touching base. You want to actually do a presentation.
We're actually going over whether it's a new product, whether it's a special, whether we're trying to get an event set up, whether it's something that I need attention for to go over. A lot of times, I can set up, hey, I'm going to be in town. When are you going to be there? Hey, I'll be there after 4:00. No big deal. I can just come in. We can kind of shoot the shit a little bit. I can talk about the brand. We'll go through your inventory, but it's real informal. It's real easy to go about. But if I'm setting like hey, Tuesday at 4:00, it's because either I have a tight time schedule where I'm trying to get it going. The other thing too is if I'm setting an appointment for you, that's an appointment that I'm not setting with somebody else.
Yeah.
So, and listen, it's not like all these cigar shops are right next door to each other. So if I'm in a place and it's 30 minutes for me to drive to a store, and then I'm sitting there and then I wait and I text them, hey, are you on your way? And then they don't answer. How long do I sit for? Do I sit for the full hour? And then they show up at the end. Then my hour-long meetings turns into 2 hours. So it can really hinder your whole travel schedule. Especially, listen, I'm on the road 35 weeks a year.
Yeah.
There's a ton of cigar shops in the Ohio area and I don't even do Dayton and Cincinnati, just in the Cleveland and Columbus area.
Sure.
So there's a lot of stores I don't see on every trip because I have to prioritize certain accounts and I have to see certain people. And some guys I can see every week. Some guys I can see every, once a month or whatever. And so it's super important that if I give someone an appointment, they have to be there for it.
How do you make the most of that? Because I think that's something that in a lot of businesses, and a lot of people's jobs, there are times, especially if you're in sales, but I mean, you can translate this, I feel like, to you can translate this to a lot of things. You know, that song, "Waiting on a Woman," Brad Paisley. I think there's an easy way when someone doesn't put you as a priority, like you're putting them as a priority, and they change plans. You can get angry, you can get frustrated, you can push back, you can make the most out of the time.
I just don't take it personally, man.
That's
like
good.
you know,
You're talking about sales, not with a woman.
Yeah, I'll cry. I'll drink a bottle of rum. That's my woman aspect of it. But
That'd
no,
be a
like
great day when you're
even
hammered.
with that, like I just assume that people have, you know, listen, if something happens, we all have lives. Shit happens. And I just assume that something came up and, you know, couldn't change, you know, and that happens. If it's a consistent habit that happens,
Yeah,
I do my best to eliminate those people from my life.
it's a good point.
Now, in sales, that makes it a lot more difficult. I have an account that if you are
Especially when you're working for someone else.
if you're a cigar rep in the Midwest that covers the Midwest, they will pretty much be able to guess exactly who this is.
Okay.
But it's
Slippery slope here.
they're a big account, but meeting with the reps during their appointed times is not always a high priority for them. And that's really difficult because they do write a lot of business. And if you are, if I'm driving 2, 3, 4, 6 hours in a case to go to an area and you're a big account, you're one of the reasons I'm going to go see you. And so when you don't show up, it's, and that happens time after time. Yes, I'd love to say, hey, I'm just not going to go see that account anymore. Unfortunately, that's just not an option all the time.
Here's one. And Mchale, if you want to expand on that, Mchale Stewart, who we all know in the cigar industry. So for those of you not in the cigar industry, you may not know Mchale, especially in this area. Drove 2 hours yesterday to find out they closed the store yesterday. That's always my fave. They knew I was coming that way too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was closed for the day with all the things going on with, COVID.
Knowing her and knowing the state, I think I know what store it is.
Or they closed and they're not coming back.
No, I think they're coming. If it's a store I'm thinking about, I think they're coming back. But no, it's super frustrating. And like, especially for Mchale, she works for CLE and Asylum Cigars, and they're a much bigger company than LaFleur or crap.
Everyone drink.
There it is. They're a much bigger company than Micallef Cigars is. And so, for her, she has a lot more accounts. And so
Dan in the audience has to pour one so we can drink because you said that.
It is incredibly important. Like her time is really valuable.
Yeah.
And, and listen, like I said, if it happens once, hey, shit happens. We all have those things happen. But when it happens enough
Do
times.
they apologize most of the time?
Most of the time. Most of the time, most of my guys are pretty good about it.
Okay.
Listen, I've had some issues where they haven't. But I had an issue with a customer who didn't show up for a meeting and then called my old office and said that he had never met the rep and that it was my fault and that how dare I not
always your
be a
fault.
rep. And I was like, and I called him back and I was like, one, you do know who I am. We've met before. And you remember when I drove an hour and a half to your store and you completely forgot we had a meeting? He was like, oh. The worst one though, and if you're a rep, you get this one is
I like having Nate smiling. It's like reminding him.
Did you ever have anyone not show up for an event or a store forget about an event they scheduled with you?
Oh, I'll do you one better.
Okay.
Similar.
Okay.
So
where were you working?
Same company that Jarod used to work for, and the same company that Mchale used to work for.
Shannon's getting drunk tonight in the audience.
He doesn't live far.
He's just gonna start saying LFD.
God damn it!
No, you said it's not when I do it.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
All right, there you go, Jarod. Attaboy.
No, so when I covered that territory, even though I was based here in Columbus, Cincinnati was not part of my territory.
Yeah,
go figure. But the rep that did cover Cincinnati left right before Christmas.
Yeah,
and he had an event scheduled the Saturday before Christmas down in Cincinnati.
Okay.
So my boss calls me. He's like, how familiar are you with Cincinnati? I'm like, well, I've been there quite a bit. Been to most of the cigar shops around there because it's not very far from Columbus. And he's like, well, I got an event at this shop. And I knew exactly who he was as soon as he said the name. He's like, the event is on Saturday and it's from 5 to 9 on Saturday.
Okay.
Like, okay, Saturday before Christmas, that means I got to skip a family Christmas party. So I drive down there. And like I said, the event was supposed to be 5 to 9, or at least that's what I was told by the office. I get down there at about 3:30,
Okay.
and the owner of the store is like, "Oh, I didn't think anyone was coming." I was like, "What do you mean?"
Communication.
He goes, "Well, the event was from noon to 4, and we close at 6."
You got there when?
3:30.
Let's go.
Sell some cigars. You got 2.5
Get it
hours.
out.
Let's do it, man.
Oh no, we stayed there till 9 o'clock.
Bingo. No, it's good.
We
So I
stayed-
think that's
but-
a big part
But
of
no,
it.
there was a huge communication issue. I mean, because
and things like
and
that.
I felt bad because obviously I was given bad information.
Yeah.
It wasn't the shop's fault.
Yeah.
I was given bad information by my boss or by the office.
There was a breakdown in communication somewhere.
Well, and
Yeah.
listen, I saw Michelle on your iPad. I saw she put, that
Your
things,
time is valuable.
things happen,
too.
but-
things happen.
but you're, obviously I'm not saying my time is more valuable than other things, but I will also remind people that I spend quite a bit of time away from my family in Chicago. And so when I'm taking the time to do it, I just ask for a phone call. And like I said, things always happen. But even if I lived locally, your time's valuable. Like here's the thing too. If I set up a meeting with you guys, you block that time out. You make sure that you have staff there. Cause I tell you, hey, Steve, this is something that really important that we have to go over.
yeah.
You make sure that you have staff there. That costs you money. You're there. Maybe it's a day off for you. Maybe you have other things that, that you
Well, I
have
like
going on.
this week with you is that, and I've seen it's funny because you learn about certain accounts. You learn about people, right?
Yeah.
But with account, there were a lot of times where, Jarod would come into the Tinder Box at Easton and it'd be on a Tuesday and not your fault, so Brian, who's the owner of the shop,
He's just not there.
He writes all the checks. He's there a lot of Tuesdays, then he'll start taking Tuesdays off again.
Yeah.
Then he's there a lot of times. So it's like, I noticed this week you came in on a Wednesday because you're like, all right, so I know this account that if I come in on a Wednesday, unless there's something out of the ordinary, I have noted down that between this time and this time, typically I have Brian there, who's the important person. I have Steve there, who is the
less important person.
but still important.
to certain people. But no, my point is that I think that there's something there that if something changes like we did this week, the show must go on.
Yeah.
With the podcast, with
What are you
Tony
gonna do?
saying that.
You're going to sit there and feel sorry. Like, yes,
I was going to cancel the whole thing. I was just going to end the podcast
I had a
and
trip.
say goodnight to everyone.
I had a trip where I was up in Michigan and I had multiple appointments scheduled in one particular town that had, a handful of shops in that town.
Yeah.
And the 2 appointments I had called me to want to reschedule it for the next day.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so here it is. It's 9:30 in the morning on a Tuesday. Like who do I go see now? And I'm like, fuck it. I know these guys in this town are going to be there, and the owners are always there because they're
Sure.
the only ones that work. I'll just go there and I'll hit all those guys up, and instead of doing them tomorrow, I'll do them today and hit those.
You just have to learn how to think on your
be
feet.
flexible.
And I
You
think
do.
in
I think-
sales is really important.
Yeah.
But I think in any job, it's how you adapt. And that's what separates people who just kind of come in and clock their work and do their thing. And obviously there are certain jobs where your ability to have to think on your feet, it just doesn't happen as often.
I think
But-
that it's maximized. We had a podcast, and this is well over a year ago, where everything is sales. And I think this is a relationship thing.
Yeah.
And I'll say this with that specific occurrence where like you show up and that person's not there, someone's besides Michelle's where the shop's closed.
Yeah.
But if there's someone else there,
I've
right?
had
So
that happen too.
so for this
You
happening,
train
is
the
that
guys, you talk to like maybe the owner, the buyer's not there, but what do I do?
I would look at it as a personal
There you go.
challenge that it's like when the person with the checkbook, right? There's always any sales, anything, there's always a gatekeeper, and it could be a receptionist, it could be something else. Tinder Box is a little unique. I think Brian, again, the checkbook holder who writes the checks and makes the ultimate decision, there'll be a certain point where they're going to rely on the people in the shop. It's not only the employees. Now, I know with the FDA, so for people that are not familiar with the cigar industry, and with the FDA changing everything, you can't always give cigars now to customers.
Yes.
However, there's a way to at least talk to customers. You know what I mean? Like you can do that. So maybe you don't spend the whole hour there. You even tell that person through a text or email, whatever. You say, hey, I realize you're not here. Something must have came up. I've been here for a half hour. Hey, by the way, I talked to your people here. You had a few customers. I hope you don't mind. Showed them where our cigars are. talk to so and so who are working the humidor right now. Talk to them, asked if they had any questions. They did. I answered those. Let me follow up. I'm gonna, and you just stay, like you said, you don't take offense to it, because if it happens once, then I think there's a way to handle it where you're like, hey, no big deal. I'm gonna make the most impact I can with my time, because like you said, and Mchale said, it's like your time is valuable.
So don't just throw it away.
So use it.
Yeah.
When you're talking
and
about,
then move on to the next one, and then follow up.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a cigar shop, all the staff is important. Because yes, Brian's the one that is writing the check. So Brian's the one that's going to order cigars.
But I would argue,
Jared.
I would argue that almost getting you guys on board is almost more important, because you touch more customers a day on average.
Because the hourly people that are working there, they're the ones that are going to sell the cigar.
Yeah,
a lot of times.
Now Brian's in his store more often than some of my others, but I have a lot of owners that have other businesses, and they might write the checks and they control the ordering. But if their manager, if their staff knows nothing about it, so some product just shows up, they don't know anything about it. They have to be educated on it. They have to be trained on it. And if I can get those guys to sell the cigars, guess what? The owner then has to buy the product.
Well, I got to be honest. Like the same thing with this, and I brought up that song. It's like you can maximize your time no matter what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And it's like something like this is that when I say the show must go on. So with Tony Barbuto, like, saying that as a topic to suggest, this has worked out. So, again, I wasn't able to promote it because this was, within 10 hours of the show.
Gosh, I was there at noon today. Yeah. And
I was busy. All right.
Yeah.
But
no, but I mean, but that goes back to the same thing. Like, this wasn't how it was planned.
You just make the most of the situation, and then you just go with it. You go with the whole thing, and you maximize it.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. You can't go in a hole and just say, all right, well, this failed, so I'm not going to do it anymore.
Yeah. No, I agree. It might not be the exact plan that you had, but you do what you can to figure it out.
I get frustrated. Jonathan Herring, I don't think he's listening tonight. Here's one to switch gears here a little bit. Half your age plus 7. Does that rule still apply in these modern times? Does anyone know what he's talking about? Is that dating?
Yes. Well, it depends on how old you are, because you might still run into some legal issues if you're young enough.
Explain that to. I think I know what it means, but explain what he's talking about.
It's talking about women, right?
Plus 7. I assume.
Right? Isn't that what you're not supposed to date a woman that's
half
younger than
age
half your age? So
plus 7.
If you're 30,
is that the sweet spot?
It's 15 plus. I mean, it's
23. 15.
Well, no, but plus 7, 15 plus 7. So half
for you.
Yes.
How old are you?
31.
31. So half your age is 15 and a half plus 7.
So 22-year-old.
22. I could not date it. That's not true. I could.
Long term. I love how you're smiling. I feel like I couldn't. I could though.
No, I think
he's in that ballpark.
I mean, here's
easy.
Here's the thing. It's just like when it comes to people.
The host, I'm asking the fucking question.
Half his age plus 5.
Easy.
I think it's.
Is that math right?
I think you get to this point where it all depends on mature. I mean, listen, I would like to think that I was more mature.
Whoever Sean Coughlin is here.
So Sean,
I go half your age.
Sean's one of my
5.
accounts.
He says, "What bourbon would you pair with Roma Craft and the Neanderthal?" I mean, Micallef Sumatra. And then he says, "I go half your age plus 5." Laurel just says, "Jonathan Herring."
She put the hand slap.
Hand to the face. Ray Cheshire says, "Steve, come on."
No, I think listen, it all depends on the person, man. Listen, I've met people that are 30 years old that have the mental maturity of a 10-year-old. I've met 21, 22-year-olds based off of their life experience that are more mature than most of the adults. Listen, we work in the cigar industry. You'd like to think that dealing with guys that are all in their like 40s and 50s and 60s on a regular basis would be super mature, but really it's the complete opposite. No. They just hide it better in some cases. Like when I was in college at 18, 19 years old.
Present company included, by the way.
I would talk to women and they'd be
also on the feed here.
I would talk to women and they'd be like, "Oh, so you must really like hanging out with all the guys. It must be such mature conversations." I was like, "Were you in? You got to sit and listen to some of these conversations I have. They're worse than half the talks I have with my buddies."
I'll say this though, in cigar shop, there you can learn a lot from people that have life experience. Now,
if he's talking about
relationships, so half your age. Nate, how old are you?
36.
36. So half your age. Do the math for me.
That'd be 18.
18
plus 7 would be 25.
What are you thinking? You're happily married. I'm not saying that.
I know. I'm like, where are you going with it?
What are you thinking though? You think that's doable?
No.
Why?
The older
Oof.
you get, the harder.
Because
it
you're
becomes.
happily married.
The older you get, the more difficult.
Because
it
Because
is.
you're
about-
happily married.
Well, yeah, that too.
Well, think about
To,
60.
to a woman that's 3 years older than me. So
There you go. She's robbing the cradle.
Everybody's
I mean-
different. Love who you love as
Well,
long
I
as they're
mean-
of legal age.
okay, there you go. But I mean,
Brought to you by-
Just good advice. for
So I
everyone.
remember when I was in college, my senior year, all the guys on our floor, we actually had a pact that none of us would date freshmen.
How old were you? What
Senior year.
Senior year. Okay.
Senior year of college, none of us were going to date.
We had a
freshmen.
pact that all of us would date a freshman.
I
Slightly different college experience.
feel like date is a strong word there.
I had to be respectful about it. Who's date?
There's challenges. I'll say this. All right.
There's challenges
So,
with any relationship.
there's challenges with any relationship, especially during these times. So I think that to Jonathan's question or topic is that doesn't matter how old you are, except for the legal thing, as Jared alluded to. I think that you just need to just try to have a good time and be honest with yourself, and you will find very quickly that if there is an age difference, if it works for you or if it doesn't. And I've had relationships with an age difference that I tried to make work and it was not working. And I've had like currently, it's a typical relationship. You know, it doesn't always quote work. You know what I mean? But it works big picture. I mean, it really does. I mean, it's all about how you handle it.
Your life experiences are so vastly different.
Yeah, there's
both
going to
stages
be
of life.
there's going to be certain things, and I think that this is for anyone, because even if you're the same age, your life experiences are different. But I will say sometimes with the age difference, there are times with that for Jonathan, if he listens back to this, because I don't think he's on tonight, that with that age difference, there will be certain topics or certain things that come up
Yep.
with the life situations, depending on how serious you are with them. If you're married, if you live together, if you're dating, there's going to be times where that doesn't always mesh, and there's the communication that's going to be very important. And I can speak to that very positively, that it's about how you work it out.
I had that issue after college. I dated a girl from my church that had just graduated high school, and I just graduated college. But the first thing I did was I actually went and asked her parents if they were cool with it.
I didn't do that.
And they were, because I was out of college, I had a career, I had my own apartment. So
Those are two different life stages.
I mean,
that's,
I had
part of what I'm talking
so
about.
I had
there, right?
responsibilities that I was taking care of. So they looked at me as a very mature person. Turns out their daughter was not a very mature person.
Acted her age.
Yeah.
I'll say this, that it's funny too, the reactions you get. So I am someone that is beyond that differential there, as far as the half your age plus 7. I'm beyond that, and it's funny the reactions you get from people that you talk to. So as a male, and
it's awesome as a guy, because the older you get, you're just like, yeah, that's.
But again, I'm not talking bad, but there are times where you don't necessarily see eye to eye on things based on the life experiences, and not saying one's more valuable than others. But what I was going to say, it's always funny being in the cigar industry, but just being a guy, and like you brought it up, and it's like I say that I'm dating someone, and I have a girlfriend that is of said age, and the reactions you get are different.
A lot of fist pumps, a lot of high fives.
There are some high
And then
fives
a
which
lot
I
of
don't care
questions.
for, and then you have we went to with Christian Aroa.
Yeah.
He was in town. We did the traveling road show, and Christian Aroa, we featured some of the cigars. Nook's been on the podcast, but Christian Aroa, and just in conversation, it came up, and I was like, oh yeah, so my girlfriend is this old, and he stopped what he was saying. He just looks at me. He's like, good for you, man. I guess. I mean, and then he follows it up with, good luck, man. So it's like there's that torn thing where it's like,
My problem is I have a niece who's 21.
yeah.
So like I can't date anyone that's like her age, because she's 20, or anyone that's close, because I'm like, that's my niece. Because to me, she will always be this like 7-year-old girl that I taught to play hockey.
I get it.
I used
there used to be a guy in my old church. he didn't meet his wife until he was 35. And he was sitting there going, gosh, I wish I would have met you 10 years ago. And he's like, wait a minute. That's not good, because he was 35, she was 20. And so after he said, he's like, wait, hold on.
Met you
no.
when you
yeah.
Reel that back.
Reel that one back. Hold up there.
So here's a topic, and I don't know if he's joking or not, but I feel like he's not actually. And this is a business owner, and he says, Steve, did you know, this is on the topics, right? Did you know I made $13 working 70 hours last week? And he says, inbox me if you're interested. I'm not. Good for you. But as a business owner, I feel like there are a lot of times where, especially right now, it's about survival. Mm-hmm. And I think there's this illusion to being a business owner
that you're rich.
That
you own a business, you must be absolutely loaded.
Exactly. Why are you driving that piece of crap car? Because you don't want to show off, and it's like, no, it's because
that's because
what can I afford?
Because you're looking at everything that my money's tied into right now.
Yeah,
especially in the cigar industry.
Cigar industry, cigar industry is one of those things that I think that it because it does have this.
You cater to the upper. Usually, it's a discretionary.
It's a luxury
good
industry.
As much as we would all love to say that it's a necessity item for us.
Yeah.
And maybe we've made it a necessity item in our lives. And I'd like to think that it's a necessity, but at the end of the day, it is still a luxury good. I can survive without it. Not going to be happy, but I could do it. And so, but most of our clienteles tend to be more well off in a lot of cases. There are some stores that's not. And that's the cool thing about cigars is you have people from all walks of life. But these guys that own these cigar shops, people think like, oh, you own a cigar shop and you sell $2,000 lighters, you must be rich. No, because I got $2,000 that sits in a case all day.
Yeah, it has to be there to be available. So that's one of those things. I think with the luxury industries, I think the service industry, it's one of those things. There's other industries out there, especially when you're starting a business. It's never unless you have just this ridiculous backing of capital investment, whether it's yourself or other people, you can make it work, but it takes some time. I think there is. So like, this person, I'm not going to say their name because I don't know if they want me to. But it's like you can even have an established business, and when things slow down, it's a give or take of do you give it up and start working in a cubicle where it's like you have steady income, and you go like in my experience, it's like you go move furniture, you go in the service industry, and it's like I can earn my money and I'm gonna get a paycheck, and I don't have to have the stress of all of the just everything just coming down on me that I'm failing if you got a family or whatever it is. But it's like long term, you're hoping it works. I think that's something that as a business owner, you really have to look at what's the long term goal, because if things start clicking,
you have to look at your business model too.
Right? But it's like if something changes, like a world pandemic, and you don't everything was going real well, like, hey, things are looking up, I just invested in this, I'm just trying to expand all this stuff, and then you have that outside threat. We talk about this a lot on the podcast over the last couple of years, where that SWOT analysis, are you familiar with that, Jarod?
Yeah.
So SWOT analysis is strengths, weaknesses, those are internal in your business, and you have opportunities and threats, those are outside or external factors. And this is one of those things that I can guarantee you that most businesses, small or large, that the vast majority, vast majority, that this type of thing, a world pandemic may be on there if you have a real savvy person that it's just on there every year. Like,
yeah, but that guy got laughed at when he submitted that in the meeting. Like, hey, what happens if we have to close for 3 months because of basically a flu? All right, Steve, shut up. Like it's like that guy wasn't taken seriously.
Yeah, I watched Independence Day, and there's this risk that we might have an alien invasion.
I think
I also watched Armageddon, and there's a chance of meteors coming. So how do we like save up a little extra in case we are waiting for Harry and the boys to go up there and drill?
I think it's
and we don't know exactly what's going to go on.
I think the biggest thing especially for small businesses, and it's tough because you have to find that balance of how do I provide for my family, but then also again, how do I protect my business long term? And if you're running a proper business, like it's really easy at the end of the year to see $100,000 sitting in the bank and go, oh, my wife does need a new car. and to pull it out. Like we had a good year last year.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to do that. And that's why you own a business, is because then that money is yours. But business,
you're not working for someone else.
You're not working for someone else. Like it's all yours. I think the important thing though in a business is to make sure that you have enough. And I think COVID has taught us this, that maybe we need to have a little bit more of a nest egg than we would normally have in any business, as to make sure it's that rainy day fund. It's just like the fund that you are as a person and you lose your job. Oh, well, and you have to kind of be prepared for that. And it's, you have to look at your business and say, okay, did I have a $13 week because of COVID? Or did I have a $13 week because maybe there's something that I can adjust with my business model? And you have to, if you're a business owner, you have to be super honest with yourself at all times about what you need to do for your family. And like you said, like, listen, I'm single, I'm 31. I can get away with a lot more crap than a guy who's 31 and has 2 kids. Yeah. You have a family. I can get away with being unemployed for a little while because I can just eat differently and not do certain things. You have family obligations.
Yeah. Once I let go, I was like, all right, who's going to give me the first opportunity out there? And, then I start working at Kroger so that way I have money coming in.
And you have to do something. And we're all at different life situations. So it kind of depends on where you sit at. But as a business owner, it's incredibly difficult. And like I said, everyone thinks that you have this massive amount of cash at home, but like, it's not like you have a lot of money. It's your money is tied up in assets that aren't exactly liquid. You have a business, but you have to sell it. And technically it might be you might have a business that's worth $2 million, but it's only worth $2 million if someo's willing to walk up and write you a $2 million
I think
check.
It's something that it shows you, and this person that made that comment, or that topic suggestion is it's planned for the future.
Yep.
Short term. Nate's really good at this. He and I have had a lot of conversations. We've talked about it on the podcast before, and he is one of those people that's fairly unique in my life, that is on a daily basis just always frugal is a word that I would use, but it's actively frugal to a point that it's like still enjoy your life, but it's not the typical American.
I wish I was better at that.
A lot of people do. Yeah. I just think that
it took me 31 years to realize I needed to be, and this did it.
Well, and I think there'd be a lot of lessons here. And I think one of the things that people need to realize is that, Jared, I think that it's planned for retirement. Mm-hmm. And there's that always that fine line where you're planning for, there's some people that I know that they do not let themselves
enjoy their life almost.
Enjoy their income to a point that it's just disposable income. All income is for the future. Yeah. And you hope that they get I hope that they have a goal for that income that they're saving up. And then when shit hits the fan, like right now, especially if you're a business owner and you're trying to sustain yourself, not only now, but in the future, that you can either sell the business and that's part of your retirement plan, but you're also hopefully saving for retirement. When it does hit the fan, that you have the ability to, I know it's never good to take out of your retirement, but how are you going to make it to your retirement if you are on unemployment for a long term? So I think it's about saving. It's about preparing for the worst, but also enjoying yourself. There's always that fine line. So
I had a hard time when I was a rep. The big issue that I came up against, you had to deal with a pandemic. The period of time that I was a rep, the issue I had to deal with being in the Midwest is that was when we had the polar vortex come through that January. And so I was going and visiting shops that weren't even getting 5 customers a day. So I'm sitting there going to these shops, and it's like, I want them to place an order because that means my numbers are doing well and I get to keep my job, but they don't have the money because they don't have customers coming in because it's negative 10 degrees outside. No one wants to leave their house.
When you're in sales or you're any sort of business that relies on customers, it's definitely more important to, especially when you're like commission based or things like that, because you see, if you talk to any guy who's been in sales for years and years and years, they'll tell you like, yeah, this month I made, 15 grand, 20 grand.
Never listen to someone that's pitching a job to you that says how much they make a month.
No, because this month you might make 20 grand, but what did you make the next 3 months? Or, there's a lot of businesses that do the majority of their sales.
Yeah.
And cigars are one of them. You cannot compare your July numbers to your February numbers.
Oh, no.
Or to your January numbers.
Not in the Midwest.
Well,
actually, no, anywhere. Because here in the Midwest, summers are hot season. Literally, because that's when we
like right now.
Well, not just the weather, but that's when we have most of our business.
84 degrees right now.
That's when we have most of our business.
Arizona, it's the opposite.
Yeah, you go to
Yeah.
Florida or Arizona, it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Their busy seasons during the wintertime because
It's
in,
manageable.
In,
It's not
in July and
200 degrees.
August, no one wants to go out to the beach in Miami and
Yeah.
smoke a cigar when it's
Especially not
100
right now.
when it's 105 degrees and 90% humidity.
No, I agree. It's just plan for what works for you and your family and your.
So Ray says, excuse me, it's a fine line, but to deny yourself the opportunity to live your life because of what may or may not happen years from now is stupid.
But everybody has their own.
No, and, Ray's done well for himself, but he has put himself out there. He's a good friend of mine, and it's something that he has lived his life in a nice balance. And I think it's a valid point. You don't want to I think it's a balance thing. You don't want to blow all your income and voluntarily live paycheck to paycheck. But at the same time, you don't want to save and just basically live like a hermit for 30 years,
whatever you feel
so that you
comfortable
can
with.
retire.
Yeah.
And then it's like you're so used to that. It's like, oh, now I'm 55, 60 years old, and now I can enjoy my life if I make it there.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's a good point from Ray. I had another one here. I got two options. Let's
You
go
got anything
here.
with some pep behind it? I think we've.
No.
Oh, sweet.
All right, I'll give you guys. Here's three choices for the next topic. Right.
Oh Lord.
So Eric Goldhaber says the birds and the bees.
No.
Pretty sure he knows how that works.
John Zappa says perceived reality versus reality. And Sean Wilkinson says Karens and Kens. That's a tough choice.
Being perceived reality, I like.
Okay, we're gonna go with perceived reality.
Karens
versus
and Kens,
reality.
I feel like will turn political at some point in time.
Oh, for sure. I got more of those too.
And I just don't. I sell cigars to all walks of life, and I'd like to keep it that way. So, there's
That's the next topic.
I always use this story of Michael Jordan when he was making the Jordans. He got a lot of crap at one point because he started marketing their Jordans to rich white kids, and he caught a lot of heat from his own culture about why do you do that? And he says, well, white kids buy sneakers too. Why would I not sell to them?
Sure.
And to me, if you're a sales guy, if you're a good enough company where you can turn away business, good on you. I am not at that point.
Sure.
I am not in a situation where I can turn down sales. I don't
Yeah.
want to be at the situation where I turn down sales. I want everything I can get, because I want to be as successful as possible.
Yeah.
And as long as you're respectful about your beliefs,
Yeah.
and you're respectful about my beliefs, then we can do business.
So you're
I don't
talking about perceived reality versus reality.
No, I went to the
I wish there was
the
some
political
context
aspect.
behind that. I think that would be better if there was a specific context behind what they're going after with that.
I think perceived reality versus reality. It is a tough one because your take on reality is obviously perceived on your end.
we live. I mean, America is the definition of perceived reality
That's
versus
right.
reality. I
That's
mean,
right.
we have more debt than any other country in the world. Why? Because we want to have big houses with 3 cars. Because it's that listen, go to a trailer park and tell me what kind of cars you see. It's brand new Corvettes. It's $70,000-$80,000 trucks. I mean, it's brand new Mustangs,
Sweet ass old Mustang.
sweet ass old Mustangs. I mean, you see but you see the house and you're like,
I think people spend money on what they want to spend.
but there's a
money on.
lot of people. Listen, I live in the South Side of Chicago. Go to any car dealership in the South Side of Chicago, and what do you see? You see $10,000 Land Rovers and Maseratis that barely run, but people want to buy them because when they roll around, they're like, "Oh man, that guy's got."
It's a perceived image.
It's that perceived image, yeah, of course. But we all are guilty of that. I have an ST DuPont lighter. It's the dumbest purchase you could ever make. It's a $2,000 lighter. It's stupid. I love it, but a lot of people do it because it's a perceived
treat
value
yourself.
of like, oh, I am a different class. Like, it's
I think it is something.
I'm
I
more
mean,
successful
it's-
because I can afford this. And
Yeah, because I had a customer last year coming into the Tinder Box, and they wanted to buy a lighter. So I'm like, okay, here's different lighters. Then they actually say that they're a cigarette smoker. So instantly my mindset changes. Like,
soft
okay,
flame.
what would be a good lighter for a cigarette smoker? No, he wanted to buy $100 Zycar torch.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's a conversation piece.
Yeah.
Because if he's on the patio of a bar, to light a cigarette, and he pulls out that candy apple red Zycar lighter. Like someone's gonna, you know what? Yeah, someone's
do with the $2,000 lighter. They laugh at you. How much was that? $2,000. Oh, why?
You just say not much.
Yeah, I was.
You're bragging.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Well,
Two house payments.
And you're like, no, feel it.
Not
You're
even
like,
rent in Chicago.
Yeah, not even. Oh,
Parking in Chicago.
Don't even give me. Oh, parking.
Ray liked that. He said, "Boom, Jared is right on." I think with that, perceived reality. If we're going to go down that road, right? Kind of like what we're talking about, perceived reality versus reality. I think there are a lot of people, and sometimes myself included. It's like there was one part of it that, and I don't overextend my means, but I don't know why, but there's something I've mentioned before on the podcast that I like to have. Like a car is something that now, if need be, I sell my car tomorrow, and I try to do it in a smart way of how I finance it so that I'm not overextended. But it is something that I like to treat myself with that makes me happy. And so I think people spend money on different things that make them happy. So for me, I don't have like this, Lamborghini or like this like over the top thing, but I really enjoy, because I feel like, and I don't drive much anymore because I live so close to my job, but it's something that I don't think it's like a respect thing when people see me pulling up and I'm trying to show off, because it's not like this extravagant car, but it's a respectable car that I take care of it too. Because like I always do it where I have like a warranty on my car the best I can, and people are like, oh man, like I was having this conversation with Liz, right? She drove home from work the other night, and we actually left at the same time, and she left about 5 minutes before me. And when I'm pulling in the driveway, and we live maybe 5 minutes from where we both work,
And that's because of traffic lights.
But she's getting. And I said, why are you just getting home? And I thought like, because she was on the phone, and she was like, well, my car was like fogging up, and I couldn't get it to not fog. It wasn't safe, so I was driving slow and all that stuff. She's like, I hate my car and all this stuff because transmission slipping, because the it's not working right with the defogger and all that stuff. And I said, well, we got to figure this out. We'll get it fixed. But she's even made the comment to me that I have my car in the shop a lot I've had the car now 4.5 years. And it's like, that's because I have it on warranty. And people make that comment. It's like, if something small is wrong and my oil change is another 6 months out because I don't put any miles on the car, I'm still going to take it in because I want to stay on top of it. And most people will drive it with problems, and then they ended up getting stranded. And I'm like, I'm not going to allow that, because this is something that for whatever reason growing up, and I can't explain it, but I think there are people that they spend money on stuff that they feel like they're important, that doesn't make sense to other people.
Well, but it's
$2,000 lighter, and you make $40,000 a year.
Stupid.
Get the fuck out of here. You should be punched in the throat.
Well, but I think it's everybody has like listen,
With your lighter.
we smoke cigars. If people found out how much we all spend on cigars on a yearly basis, they would go, that's ridiculous. That makes no sense. But it's for us, it's important. I think the thing when you go back to perceived reality versus actual reality is, unfortunately, in our culture, things like a nice car, things like a nice suit, and how you dress, it gives off an image that you are successful and that you know what you're talking about. Why is there a reason that you have to wear a suit, or you should wear a suit when you go to a job interview? Is because it starts off that good impression of, I am professional.
Good point.
I've hired people before that came in, they were well dressed, they were well manicured, they were put together. The most unprofessional, lazy pieces of crap you'll ever meet in your life.
And they wear the same suit,
but they wear
the stain in it.
Yeah, but then you meet another guy who maybe because of one reason or another showed up, and maybe he just had a polo shirt on, and maybe he had gym shoes on. Well, I don't know his life situations, but maybe that guy works 10 times harder. There is always exceptions to those rules, but I was taught that you put out an image of, dress for the job that you want, not for the job that you have.
Yeah.
And people will take you.
Fake it till you make it.
Whether it's right, wrong, or different, when you perceive yourself a certain way, you tend, in most cases, to act a certain way, and you tend to kind of push yourself in that way. I grew up playing hockey, and at a young age, we had to wear suits to our games. And the reason that we did that was because our coach said, this is your job for today. You need to be a professional. To be a professional, you have to take yourself seriously. And And if you want other people to take yourself seriously, you need to show up and start that off being serious about who you are and what you guys are
And
doing.
that has impacted you up until
100%. I wear suits. I mean, you know me.
I do.
I wear suits more than, I mean, today was my casual. I had a polo shirt on today, and that was,
I was
my,
going to say something about that, by the way.
that was the most casual I think I've ever been into your store.
I was offended.
You should have been. I felt if it wasn't 100 degrees, I have 3 suits
As
in
I
my
wore
suitcase.
a t-shirt and jeans.
But
every
that's-
day.
For me, when I'm going in to sell someone something, I want people to like, I'm selling this image of cigars. When I go and do an event at a high-end country club, they don't want to buy cigars from a kid. And I'm also younger than a lot of people in my industry. So I have to hold myself accountable for different things. And
Good news is you don't look younger.
no, thank God I finally look my age. Like, kind of like I've looked this shitty since I was like 16.
Yes,
So
a lot of city
Yeah,
miles
like,
on that.
I mean,
Speaking of cars, a lot of city miles will really beat you down.
But no, like when
Highway
you're-
miles, real easy going.
Really
City miles.
a lot of stops
Good
and
having you
starts.
on, Jared.
A lot of stops and starts.
but no, like when you're a
Not a lot
sales
of oil changes.
No.
when you're a sales rep in the cigar industry, like if you're doing an event at the shop, you got to think about what the shop is. Like the shop that I started working at in this industry, if I showed up there and I was wearing a suit and tie to do an event, like I am way overdressed.
Right.
I still wear a suit.
Way overdressed.
I might take the tie off, but I'll still wear a suit.
Even if I wear dress slacks and a dress shirt, I'm still overdressed. But there are other shops that if I go into and I'm wearing jeans and a polo, like they're gonna I'm way underdressed and they're gonna sit there and like the shop
think
may not
there's-
want me in.
I think that it's knowing your audience, and I agree with like what Jared said because I was taught the same thing: is dress for the job you want, not the job you have, type thing.
I had a
And
grandfather that mowed the yard in slacks and a dress shirt.
That sounds miserable, and
Steve, you're lucky if Steve mows the yard with a shirt on.
that's also true.
Hey, would you?
Well, so that's funny. Last year when
Speaking back to our sponsor, the OnlyFans at Bourbon and Podcast.
when we first
Jesus Christ.
when we first got a soundboard, I came over here on a Sunday.
Just all right, we're not gonna tell the story. The
okay.
thing is that I posted recently when I hit 40, I want to be in the best shape of my life. We'll leave it at that. All right. I think you should actually.
But
Show
it
your
isn't-
age.
But isn't working out though? Isn't that also a perception of like how people take you? I mean, it goes
Absolutely.
into the same thing. It's-
Absolutely. I'll expand on that a little bit. Is that's something that same thing with the car thing I was talking
No,
about.
there is a health aspect to it too, which
There
is always
there's
good.
a lot
but-
of benefit, and I've expanded that in my life. It's interesting with all this shit going on right now. And I said this in a recent episode and it was funny because the episode, and I do want you guys, and he doesn't need pumped, but like, please, if you guys are looking for a podcast that you finished, you caught up on the Bourbon and BS podcast, the Joe Rogan episode with Bill Burr. It was very interesting because, and Jonathan Herring from General Cigars, he was here that week and he actually sent it to me. And I started listening to it. In the first like 20, 30 minutes, I'm like, he's a way more successful and smarter version of me because in the simple sense that like they were talking about like vitamin D. They're talking about taking care of yourself with all the stuff going on right now. Is like the health aspect of it is the biggest, not the things that are genetic that you have the immune deficiency, but it's like the people that aren't taking care of themselves when a virus like this comes around. There's sometimes that something will come around that's not you can't actually prepare yourself for. You know what I mean? Like the healthiest person.
No
can
amount
do
of
that.
gym time will save you from smallpox.
But taking care of yourself on a regular basis, it's something that it was interesting that toilet paper was gone when this first started back in March, but vitamin D and other like supplements of things that based on the American diet were aplenty.
Yeah.
And
Which was
no one was buying that.
Which was actually important.
And everyone knows what they should be doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the perceived reality for me is that yes, I mean, I started working out when I was like in my teens, and it was because it was that age old thing going back to the probably 50s and 60s, where you had it's like you lift weights and you're gonna get a girl to notice you, and then as you get older, you transform that into is that you do have a level of respect, just like putting on a suit. It's how that suit fits you. It's how people perceive you, and perceived reality is that you got your shit together because you're healthy, you're dressed well, you show up in a respectable car, but that's not always easy to do. You don't want to overextend yourself. So there's also, I think there's a value of you do what you can, you're there with a good attitude, and you show up every day.
Well, I think
you kill it every day.
I think when you look at it, it doesn't always have to be, and we mentioned a lot of things that cost a lot of money, and it doesn't always have to cost money. I think it's when you're trying to build up your own perceived value. If you ask like any man who, you know, has been around for a while and is hired and stuff, and you say, what's the first thing that you look at when a guy walks up to you with a suit? You look at their shoes, right?
Yeah.
If you can have expensive, so you point to the shoes, like it's, if you take care of something like, because listen, especially dress shoes, it's real easy to forget about those. But if you're willing to maintain that, you could have the nicest suit in the world. Anyone, if you have the money, can go out and spend $10,000 on a suit. It doesn't mean that it's the right thing for you. But if you can't take care of your shoes, that to me tells me more about you and about your personality and your character.
You know what I liked about Nordstrom back in the day? I fear that they're gonna go under like a lot of department stores. I don't think they will.
Nordstrom will be all right.
But it was something that, you know, when I was dressing up for work, and it wasn't suits, but it was like a nice dress shirt and pants.
You were just put together. Yeah.
And like currently right now I have close to like $2,000 worth of shoes that I don't wear. And it was,
what size shoe do you wear?
I'm not going to 11.
I got 13. I'm out. I was going to
13.
Yeah.
That's
Me
impressive.
too.
So, but what my point was is that
it doesn't correlate. I'll tell you that.
My
right
point
now.
was is that
Speak for yourself.
so I was
perception versus reality, tying it all in.
I'll say this, that perception does not match the reality for either of them, probably. But it was one of those it was one of those things that I actually so Nordstrom offered something here locally that I had shoes that I didn't even buy from them, but they had that shoe shine service.
Yep.
And it was, you know, I told people, I was like, oh, I take my shoes into Nordstrom and I drop off a pair. And within a few days, they have it professionally.
Did you do like the monthly thing where you pay like a monthly thing?
No, it was like $250 or $5.
It's perfect. Yeah.
For a shine, and it was like a professional shine and all that stuff. And there are a lot of people that'll be like, oh, that's a waste of money. But then you look at other people's shoes and you're like, you probably, I'll give you the $5 for the first time. Like first time's always free.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be paying. Like
well, you meet a guy who's successful. And if you have like your shoes, like I remember I had it when my first job out of college was I was working for Hyatt Hotels, and we were a big convention-based hotel company. And we had a lot of really high-end business travelers that would come, and I was running around a lot. I never took care of my shoes. And my boss actually said, go see my shoe guy and go get your shoe shined. And he paid for my first couple.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to a guest, and he mentioned my shoes, and and this guy owned,
blew your mind a little bit.
He owned a multi-million-dollar business and mentioned my shoes. I really like that and I had a tie, I had a bow tie, didn't say anything about that, but he mentioned my shoes.
Yeah. And
he says, I really like that you've taken care of your shoes. And like, that was a big thing. And so I started doing that.
Yeah.
And I tell my nephew's getting to the age, he's 19 now or 18 now. He just graduated high school. You know, my goal is to try to teach him how to be. My dad did it for me. My grandfather did it for me. My goal is to try to do that for him. And I think every man should have a cobbler. Have a guy that does your shoes. Whether you go to him a lot or not, you should know a guy that goes and takes care of your shoes for you.
So we're going off on this tangent a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
well,
Oh, you say to a woman, you
like,
compliment shoes on a woman? Oh, you're in, man.
They were picked with a like active choice. But yeah, it's one of those things that you know, for me with shoes, it was, I did the whole thing where, you know, I'd get like one pair of black, and then I finally expanded to a brown pair.
Ooh, you saucy man, you.
Right, you know, but that was in my early 20s, and it was something that I would wear those black, because then it's like you have a wardrobe that
until
only
your foot's hanging out of them.
Well,
right?
yeah, it's like, you know, you get the one pair of shoes, and it's like, yeah, your foot's hanging out. You know, it's like beat up, and they start looking like shit.
Yep.
And I paid $50 for those pairs of shoes. I ended up I went into like Cole Haans and Allen Edmonds. Like I didn't go like major, like $500 a pair, but it was an investment. And then I learned about the fact that it's like, I can buy $50, $60 pair of shoes every 6 months, or I can have shoes that I still have in there that I can get either locally or send them back to the manufacturer. Like we talk about in the cigar industry, if people are cigar guys or girls out there, is like, you can send your lighter back in and get it refurbished or replaced. Same thing. You never have to buy another pair of shoes unless you really fuck them up.
Think about
I can
your
buy
car.
a $300 pair of shoes and I can have them for 20 years. And every 4 or 5 years, if I have a rotation, if you build that up, I can send them in or take them to a local guy that's
Resold,
trusted.
anything.
And it's like you're in for that 50 or $60. And now you still have a $300 pair of shoes that people comment on. And I think there is a value to that.
Think about it just like your
losing
car. You take care of your car better than I would say 90% of people who own cars.
I hate the fact that I don't wash my car like I did when I first bought it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the same thing. Like if you take care of it, they'll last you. Even on cheap pairs of shoes, you don't have to go out and spend $500 to $1,000 on a pair of shoes.
No.
But if you take care of them, and if you take care of anything, if you take care of your body, if you take care of your car, if you take care of your wardrobe, if you take care of your relationship, if you put a little bit of that short-term energy into it, it will save you time, money, headache, and stress over the longevity of whatever that item is.
Did you ever see the movie The Killers with Ashton Kutcher and Katherine Heigl?
I just remember it being terrible, but I
Parts
think
of it, yeah.
But so there's a part earlier on in the movie where Ashton Kutcher and Tom Selleck,
It's a good cigar.
they're skeet shooting, and Tom Selleck goes, "Look at my shoes," and I forget what brand he said they were.
Tom Selleck says anything about that, I'm going to take his word for it. I don't care if he's an act, like he's a
When
part
I
of a
grow
movie,
up, that guy.
He
or
goes,
if he's just like right here and he tells me something, I'm like, yes, Mr. Selleck.
he goes, "Look at my shoes. I bought these 20 years ago when I was flying the London route. If you have something of good quality and you take care of it, it'll last you forever." And he was trying to make the
About marriage.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, because Ashton Kutcher was going to marry his daughter. He's like,
Oof.
if
I
you
would
have
not.
something,
Could you
I-
imagine if
I
that's
would
the guy that
not-
opens the door when
I
you
would
go to like
not
knock on
wanna
the door for the
marry
first time?
Tom Selleck's daughter. No.
Tom, hi, I'm here to. Oh shit!
Well, I dated a girl.
It was
in
nice
col-
meeting you.
I dated a girl in college that her dad worked for that particular state's correctional facilities.
Was he cleaning the gun?
He had his utility belt sitting right there by the door when we walked in,
Jesus.
and he just kind of looks at it, and I turn my head and I see what he's looking at. I'm like, "Oh, is that a Smith & Wesson 40 cal?" He goes, "You know stuff about guns?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been."
Damn, this didn't work.
I was like, "Yeah, I've been shooting since I was 5." He looks at his daughter and goes, "You had to bring home the one guy that's not afraid of guns."
He could have played that two ways. That way, which was nice for you, or you can be like, then you know what damage it can do.
Yeah. Well, two days later, he took half a day off work and took me golfing. So
It's nice. It's nice.
Yeah.
Here's the next topic as we get into this is detoxing from social media. Or do you want to talk about Karens and
No, I like
Kens?
the detox. Well,
sorry, Sean. Yeah, detox.
yeah, I mean, I
Well, they're
think
both Sean, so
Oh,
dude, it's so important, especially right now. No one has anything else going on.
dude, I had to
And
back
it's-
off of Twitter.
It's so easy just to sit there and spend all of your time on social, because I mean, you have no connection to anything else, and it's the only way you can get connection to the outside world. The problem that you run into is that now, like, social media is not one, it's not a news source. It's an entertainment. It's all for entertainment. And they have
Don't talk too badly on it as we broadcast on Facebook and YouTube
Yeah.
Live.
no, but it's listen, it's but cigar, but
this
cigar,
is something that you can actually learn from, but you
This
have
is
to follow
educational.
certain things that
but in all honesty, the podcast runs into issues with it because when you think about it, it promotes cigars tobacco.
Yeah.
It does not show up when people like it will not randomly show up on people's feeds like other podcasts will. And it's all algorithms, and they tend to promote what they want to promote.
Yeah.
And they tend to steer people with similar ideas towards usually far right or far left ideas of the, and so it helps encourage only one behavior. And it helps divide it. So if you step away from social media, guess what? You can have a conversation with somebody, and you can have a conversation with someone who believes something completely different.
I'll encourage everyone out there to not only, so the way that we've had success on Facebook is that I have, and some groups don't really encourage it a whole lot, but I get invited to cigar, bourbon,
Yeah.
and other things, like even like beard, groups and all that stuff. It is that I share this podcast on those, and it's like you have those common interests that if they follow it, they set up the alerts. And if you guys do the same thing, if you set up the alerts to get like Bourbon BS community page, you'll get an alert. I saw Shannon was in the garage when I posted before the podcast that we were going to go live, And my phone came up with it. His phone came up with it. So the things that you follow, you can kind of bypass some of that stuff.
But
But
getting
in
new
general, it's very tough. Yeah, absolutely. So that's where it's like you have to be active and follow groups and pages that you agree upon. Here's what I'll say though, also is that with my Twitter feed, my Instagram feed, not so much Facebook, I have kept certain accounts on there that I don't agree with, so that I can follow that. And initially, especially in the last 6 months, there have been times where I'm scrolling through my feed and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I don't understand. I don't
understand how you can think that, or
I don't match up, and I try to give it time. I don't unfollow these people. And I think that's the social media thing, that the detox. Right. So if you just follow things that you agree upon, and Shannon in the audience said you live in an echo chamber, is that's where it's short-sighted.
100%.
Now, if someone's aggressive and it's just constant and it beats you down and affects your daily life, then yes, get out of there, unfollow, get it out of your life. Like, you were saying earlier, like it's like a toxic relationship. Get it out of your life. But there are some that I follow and I still follow up in this day that I watched a video that was posted by an Instagram feed that I follow as a person, as a celebrity. And it was very frustrating to see it. And I told Liz about it, and she had a different take than I did. But I looked at it, I was like, look at this hashtag. I don't get that. I think that's actually breeding something that I don't agree with, but I still want to educate myself with it. So the detoxing of social media, if you are, there's a lot of people I talk to, myself included, that I feel like I had to take a step back. And during the quarantine, a lot of people, and I was still going out and everything else, but the people I interacted with during that point, they were inundated with their media sources and social media sources that they were following.
Yeah.
And it just, that echo chamber that Shannon's talking about, it bred and just put gasoline on the fire. It bred, I don't want to say the hate. I'm not saying it like, but I'm not going to make a point on that, but it can lead to that, but it can also just make you angry. And then all of a sudden, everything else in your life is just suspect because of that, or it's a victim to what you're feeding yourself with, your intake. It's like food, right? So if you eat bad once in a while, it's not that big of a deal. If you eat bad, but you still have your overall goals and all that stuff. But if you eat bad and that's all you eat, you're going to feel bad. Well, you're not going to sleep well. You're not going to react well to people that are in your life. You're not going to react well to new people in your life. Mm-hmm. And you are on edge. If you don't get enough sleep on that because you're thinking about all these things. And the same thing goes with if you think everything is copacetic and no, I'm on this side and all I think about is this and we're in a good spot. All it takes is time for you to see that everything around you is changing because you were unaware of the other side, or it's not just one versus two, it's everything in between that. That's where you take that. We're talking about like the rating system on part one. It's like, you can say like, oh, it's like out of 10, this is where you're at. No, it's like out of 1,000. There's so many things. You have the far right, you have the far left in social media and also media, but there's also all of these other factors. Don't just watch one news station. And if you agree with that news station, or you agree with those Twitter followers that you follow, you agree with all the social media, and you just follow that, it is an echo, and it just feeds that. And you just like when someone else says something, you're like, fuck you. Like, I don't agree with that. But if you listen to that, you listen to their point, that's where the real communication happens. And that's where the growth happens. And I had that conversation last night after I got off work with a person I haven't seen in a while. And it got to the point, we didn't get angry with each other. I finally said to a point, I'm like, I get what you're saying. Yeah. I don't agree with it. And that person looked at me and they were like, okay. because it was about how you react to that. I don't know. They weren't looking for a reaction, but it's like that. We're all hair trigger right now, and it's like with all this stuff, it's like you're having this conversation, and it's like we're gonna butt heads, and we all know that we're gonna vote for one person or another. You're not going to change how someone feels politically, religiously, or economically, or anything else. A lot of times, if you're talking about cigars, maybe, but even then, chances are you're not going to change the opinion in that moment.
The problem that I see with social media is it doesn't encourage educational conversation. It doesn't encourage people to sit there and have a conversation and learn from someone else. Like we need a educated society, and in order to be better, and that's with anything. And
social media is not,
and social media doesn't encourage, because what it does is encourage some guy to sit there and just go, fuck you, and just type it in on their thing. And they don't have to, they're not held accountable for what they're saying. Whereas if you say that to me in person, you're held accountable to it, based off what you said. And that to me is like the important aspect of it. And, if you look through the history of the world, like there are cultures of people who do things that you go, how could you ever be a part of that group or of that? Well,
that was the times.
They were raised in a cone of that's what there was. There was no other outside influences to educate them on anything else. Like I was talking to a friend one time, and I was driving through Amish country in Ohio, in northern Ohio. And my friend goes, I don't know how you could ever be Amish. Like I'm like, because you have access to things.
That's what you know.
And you weren't raised that way. But if you are kept in a bubble and you know nothing else, if you don't know the world's round, guess what? The world's not round. It's
still round.
But I mean, in your mind though, and it doesn't affect it. But I mean, that's the thing is that if you were raised a certain way, and if you are surround yourself with people who think a certain way, you're never going to get exposure to something else. And the problem is that the majority of our country is not far one side or far the other. We tend to be in the middle, but social media, it doesn't encourage us to have those middle conversations.
Doesn't sell papers, man.
It doesn't sell papers. It doesn't make people turn on the news. The news now is not educational. It's entertainment. It's 100% entertainment. But people don't necessarily get that. If you're a Fox News guy, watch CNN. If you're a CNN person, watch Fox News. Because guess what? The truth is probably somewhere right in the middle on most.
If you're a CNN or a Fox News person, don't watch either.
Well, yes, but
I don't watch
the local news.
No, I encourage them
I don't
to
watch any of them.
I encourage them to watch both.
Yeah.
Because I think that you will get two completely sides to that story.
Yeah.
And you're going to get one going one way, the exact same topic, the exact same facts, but one perceives them as this, one perceives them as this. And you as a person use your education to say, okay, well, this makes sense. This over here makes sense. My belief is going to be kind of right in the middle. And understand that, but just be respectful of other people. And social media just doesn't encourage that. And that's my issue with
I think
it,
there's too many things right now that are too polarizing, that there's not much middle ground.
Dude, I get it on cigars all the time. The only thing I tend to post on cigars or on social media is cigar related stuff. Yep. And there was a time when in Illinois and Colorado, where I'm from, we're going through these increases in tobacco tax, right? And these smoking bans. And I would get on to social media and these comments underneath these articles, and I would post my side of it. Hey, one, you will get more money if you lower taxes. Hey, this money goes here. Hey, I'm a consenting adult. I should be able to do this. And I would get so frustrated because I would try to have these educational conversations with people, and I would be told, you're an idiot. Fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about. And I had to stop doing it because my girlfriend at the time was like, I'd be sitting on a couch just angrily typing. And she'd be like, why are you so angry? And I'm like, because this person won't understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's like, this isn't the platform for it.
Yeah. Well, it's consuming.
Yeah. I'd gotten to the point where I had some friends that everything they were posting was either something that would just make me angry, or they were intentionally sharing bad information, stuff that was not accurate.
You're not held accountable for it. You can post whatever you want just to get a rile up people, and that's just as bad.
So I had to sit there and because I had a friend that I've known since high school. Everything that they were posting was just nothing but anger day in, day out, just angry. And it started to affect me that way.
Yeah.
And eventually I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm not even gonna, I'm gonna make it to where I don't even see what you post. Like, we're still friends. You come into my town, we'll hang out. If I go into your town, we'll hang out. But on social, like, it was having too much of a negative impact on me as a person that I'm like, that no, I need to cut that out.
Look at anyone who spends their majority of their life on social media. They're not happy people. And it goes back to
part of my job, and I'm
no, but you're not. But listen,
I mean,
but you balance it though, and there's a difference. But like, even people who are, and it goes back to perception versus reality. Maybe on social media, they're perceived to be happy, and so then you think, oh well, I have to do these things because that's what makes me happy. But what'd you say? Yeah, highlight reel. You just see their highlight reel of their life, but what you don't see is you don't see the struggle, the loss, the work that goes into those things. That takes a lot out of you as a person.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and people think, and then they say, oh, well, this person did this one thing and they're super successful and they look really happy. Okay, well, did you not see how many times they failed? Did you not see them living on food stamps in order to get their business off the ground, or almost losing their wife and kids because they had no money, or because of this? Did you not see the work they put in there? No, you just saw the Lamborghini and the big house and the vacations all the time. You didn't see all that other stuff. And so then when you hit that point, you don't know what to deal with, and then you're like, oh fuck, like this isn't how so and so did it.
Yeah,
it's that it goes back to perception of reality versus actual reality. It's a very similar thing.
There's another podcast that I actually enjoy, and it's evolved since then. Andy Frisella.
I don't know. Yeah.
So it was the MFCEO project, and I really enjoyed the podcast because he's done really well for himself. And it's interesting because he would always push that story where, like, he started with this, him and his brother, you know, they started a nutritional supplement store. And for the first 2 years, like, they had a cot in the back, they were doing all this stuff. And finally he got to a point 10 years later or so that he was doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
And they expanded. They just expanded more recently again into this major thing. He's got multiple businesses, and for a time he started posting those Lamborghinis, the private jets. He did all that stuff, and then he backed away from it, and now he talks about it. He's like, no, I had that growing up. I had that Lamborghini Countach poster in my room growing up, and it was like, I knew I couldn't afford it, but that was the goal.
Yeah.
It wasn't about paying a lease payment. It wasn't about that. It's that difference. And Ray actually, Ray Cheshire posted something where it was like, he wants to now, at this point in his life, to make sure that even if there's a good deal for financing, that he can back it up with cash. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things that, you know, like Andy Frisella says, that all these things that he has, he's not trying to portray that this is just something that you strive for, but it's something to strive for. And then when you get there, you make smart decisions. You don't, that's step 18.
Yeah.
That's not step 2, that you start a business and now you have to do all that stuff. And I think we're beyond that. I think with social media being the topic at this moment is all those, you know, there's nice car, nice woman, nice, you know, house and all that shit. There is so much, resentment almost, like, you don't own any of that shit. And
but people don't see this. They see that you have it and they're like, oh well, that's what I want. I want that.
Who doesn't want that?
I mean,
but they don't understand what it takes.
Well, and that's the thing is, and it all goes back to, like, you know, when you go to social media, it's not easy. So for some people it will be easier than others, and that I will never deny that. But you have to understand that there is a level of work behind it, and social media masks that, because you see the end goal, you don't see the journey. And the journeys, it's the battle. It's where you learn a lot about yourself. It's where you learn a lot about a lot of different things.
I think it comes down to the fact that it's like, if you want something, it can be small or large. It's, hey, I'm struggling right now. I want not a Lamborghini. I want a car that runs.
Well,
you know, I want to start a business. I want to do all that stuff. even if you have a job and it's like, yeah, man, it'd be nice to do that. The harsh reality, and thankfully, I think in America, still to this day, and I know there's a lot of people that will say certain things, especially right now, but I look at it as if I want to have a more stable life for myself and for my girlfriend, if I want something, I need to figure out how to make more money, whether it be through education, whether it be through more hours, whether it be through a second job. It's like it's that balance, or that there's something there that it's like you can want and want and want. You can blow through your credit to get there, or you can say, all right, so I make this now, so how do I make more? You know,
it's okay to want more.
And if it doesn't happen, you're not getting it. That's okay too.
Wanting more is what drives us.
Cover your bases.
It's what makes America America. I mean, that's what makes, I think, Americans great.
You can't say that anymore right now.
I think you can, because I don't think it's gone, but I think that we have to be careful not to lose it, because yes, you can want more, but you can't just want to be given to you.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
That's a good point.
like I want to be
What
better.
was that, Nate?
I said that was a good point.
Why is that?
Like you can't expect it to be given to you.
Yeah,
Like you there's a sweat equity involved.
Yeah, of course.
And there's a lot of people that want to bypass the sweat equity to get the things that they want.
I want a private island. I want a yacht. That'd be awesome. But I need to do the work to get there. Like, it's not going to be handed to me. And
I feel like you'd blow it away like Johnny Depp did.
Oh, I 100% would. I want to, like, side note, like, remember when Johnny Manziel got drafted and everyone was like, oh my God, look at this guy just blowing his money. How could you do that? I tried to do that in college. I just wasn't famous or had the money, but I fucking blew. Yeah, there's no way you're going to give me a lot more money in fame. Yeah.
How much credit do I have?
Yeah.
Perfect. That's my income now. No.
I just swipe this little plastic thing and then I don't have to worry about paying it. Yeah, sure.
There's
why
a
not?
reason why your average professional athlete is bankrupt within 4 years.
Perceived reality, man.
Yeah.
And social media. You get rid of social media, I bet you half those guys don't live that type of lifestyle.
That'd be an interesting sociology experiment.
Get rid of MTV Cribs, doesn't happen.
Do they still have that?
I don't think so. But they have
No, they have the Kardashians.
They have okay, Kardashians are a great example. Social media. They're the most followed
Thanks a lot,
people.
Sean.
They're the most followed 4 people on the face of the planet in the Kardashians. How many people want to be them? And literally one got famous because she's a porn star.
I would love to have what they have. I don't want to be them though.
No. Well, that went down a rabbit hole.
Are you done with that?
No, I mean, I think we beat the nail on that head though. What was his other one? Ken's versus Karen's? That was Ken's and Karen's.
Boy. I feel bad for anyone named Ken or Karen.
You're not going to see that name
Especially Karen.
I don't think a lot of people are going to be naming their daughters Karen for the next couple of years. I think you're going to see a drop off on this popularity of that name. Unless it's a family name,
there was a time.
It's kind of like Adolf's not very popular in Germany.
Nowhere.
Nowhere really.
The whole
That
world.
used to be the most popular name in Germany in Bavarian culture was Adolf.
It only takes one.
It takes one short little art student
It
just
only
screws
takes
it up for everybody.
Failed artist.
I think I
said
feel
art
bad
student,
for
said he was
people.
good.
I know a couple Karens, and I feel bad for them. But I also think the may speak to your manager hairstyle is not quite as popular as like the Rachel back in the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm happy I don't have hair.
Listen, we have Kens
But-
and Karens because of social media.
But maybe that brings up another, like,
Oh God.
how did the whole Karen thing come about? Like, what made people feel like
Why that name?
No, not why that name, but
People feel entitled.
because when you talk about a Karen, all right, if someone says, "Oh, this person's acting like a Karen," what do you think of?
I think they're probably a nice, respectful person. I don't judge people based off their name, Nate.
I think you're full of shit.
I'm 100% full shit. No, I think there's
Kens and Karens.
But how
and
did- but-
Jareds.
I mean, so
Fucking Jareds.
fucking
people
Jareds, man.
people had to do something in order for that to become a stereotype. What prompted them?
Listen, whether people want to admit it or not, I think no, I'm not. You can't say all stereotypes come from truth because that's not entirely true. But stereotypes have a culture behind them in any culture that you look at, and it's how it's perceived and how it's advertised to people who aren't educated about that society. are, you know, there's stereotypes about every culture out there. You know, you looked at it after 9/11 with
Ooh.
that is not like there was a stereotype, and it was completely false whatsoever. But it was a stereotype that came out because that was what was being portrayed on social media and on media and things like that.
I think there's a reaction there to that, and then there's the, whether you want to call it a narrative or it's just how people talk, and I agree with you.
And Ken and Karen are just a stereotype geared towards, mostly white people.
It is. I mean,
and listen,
those are typical.
And those people haven't done themselves. The people the lady who freaked out and was throwing her shit all over a grocery store because she was asked to put a mask on did not do herself any favors. She has some issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is every white person that way? No, not at all. But then again, you can say that with every single culture. With every single culture, there is stereotypes that aren't true. And that's
what makes them stereotypes.
And that's what makes stereotypes.
There's a kernel of truth to every stereotype, in my opinion, but it's a kernel.
Yes. You have to educate yourself. If there's a culture that you don't know and you tend to look at it from a stereotype, if you need to do yourself, you need to get educated on what is going on. You need to surround yourself with that culture, educate yourself with it, learn that maybe those actions come from a certain place. Maybe there's reasons that people do certain things. Maybe there's reasons that people act a certain way.
I had a guy come in the cigar shop today and didn't have a mask on. And right now in Columbus, now in Franklin County in Ohio, masks are now required, right? And he came in, big dude, probably like 50 years old, but dude, played football, like probably killed it, probably former professional, whatever. And I was like, "Hey, can you put a mask on for me?" And because I don't really care. And I'm like, "Hey, can you put a mask on for me?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm from out of town. I don't have a mask." He's like, "Do you have a mask for me?" And I looked at Brian. And I was like, "Hey, I knew we had some, but I was like, what are we gonna do with this? You know what I mean? Because if he wasn't there, I know how I would handle it." I was like, "Brian, do we have any more?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think we have a few in the back." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I grabbed a mask, gave it to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm from out of town." And while I went back there, I could hear him. He's like, "Well, I can shop somewhere else." And I'm like, "Here we go." So I came out there with a, one of those like, surgical, like whatever, like the
medical tube,
medical, whatever that you're supposed to replace every 4 hours. I wore one for 6 weeks, and I gave it to him. And once I gave it to him, he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Where are you from?" He's like, "Salt Lake City." I was like, "Oh, okay. Don't know the stats from Utah. I don't know." But I was like, "Hey, here you go." And he ended up buying a bunch of cigars. And he got to the counter, and I'm like, "So what are you in town for?" And he's like, "It's business." He's like, "Yeah, I'm not from around here, so I don't know what you guys' laws are." It's very like condescending. And I'm like, "Well, just so you know, like I would keep that mask. What are you doing the rest of the time you're in town?" He's like, "Well, I'm headed over to Country Club." And I was like, "Take that with you. Don't throw it out." He's like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because they may or may not say the same thing." You know what I mean? And it was one of those things where it was like, you can be mad at me, but it's like, just fucking do it. Because that's what's required right now.
Yeah.
You like piss and moan. You can go,
such
what? Like
it's
like a teenager that's pissing and moaning about how things are going. And it's like, well, I'm not going to wear a mask. And it's like, I don't agree with it either, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm still going to do it because I'm at work. I wear it to go get food. I wear it now because it's what's expected, and it's not that big of a deal.
Well, like I wear mine, like just like you. I don't agree with it, but I wear mine when I'm at the shop in order to protect Brian, in order to protect the shop.
You like your job.
I do like my job. I don't want the shop to get in trouble. I don't want Brian to get hit with a fine because one of his employees tried to puff up his chest. And
no, but it was one of those things that I even told Brian afterwards. I was like, I'm sorry if he's like, "No, I'm happy you said that," because the guy literally was like, "I just want to pick out some cigars and get out of here." And I was like, "Well, let's pick them out so we can get you out of here."
Yeah.
And this dude, I'm looking up at him like, let's pick out cigars so we can get you out of our store. And he's like, looks back at me and that's one of those dudes that, you know, like can lay down right now and probably like throw up 315 on a bench and just hasn't worked out for 20 years. And I'm like, you know, fuck you for many reasons. No, I can't do that. I have a lot of friends that are those same people, and I say fuck you to them lovingly. But the same thing with that guy. I was like, yeah, like pick out cigars. We win. We sell you cigars, and then you can go about your way. But before he left, I made sure to be like, take that mask with you while you're in town. And he was super nice the rest of the way out.
Yeah.
But I absolutely, you could Yelp review me, and he may still do it because he wanted like a box of matches. So we had our contact information. And I was like, absolutely. Here's a box of matches. I'm waiting for your Yelp review or your wife's Yelp review, probably.
His name wasn't Ken, was it?
Maybe. I didn't look. All right. With that,
Is that the last one?
I can pull up another. You pulling out business cards?
No,
I can forward those on to that gentleman.
Someone asked me a question texted me a question, and
What's the question? You want to throw it on there?
No, because I don't know the answer, and I'm trying to find. Oh, I don't have it with me.
All right, fair. All right, so Jarod, thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much
for being a last minute
awesome,
guest. You've been a
it.
long-term upcoming guest that we've been talking about, and I'm happy to get you on there. I've enjoyed this. This is something that, again, if you guys are on Facebook listening to this, or if you're on the audio side and you're listening to this, you might be killed by a bug here. Once again, this is Nice's Garage on a Wednesday night podcast. But no, if you guys are listening on the audio, this is something that if you're free on Wednesday nights, please join the conversation as we're doing it, because I love this conversation on the feed because it feeds our conversation.
I like the interaction of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the benefits of doing it live. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to do it live and keep it that way.
Yeah,
is interaction with the community out there.
So I'll say this is that if you're on Facebook, if you want to request the Bourbon and BS community page, ask for permission to be on there. I'll approve you. We had our first as one of our followers said, a bot that was, if you guys saw that was about like trying to like, hey, I make this much. Yeah. So he's off the community page. We're gonna filter it out. It's good community. But that's what this second part was about tonight with basically calling an audible tonight. And I hope to get Juan Lopez on from Gurkha Cigars. He's going through a lot. That company's going through a lot. I'm not going to get into it right now, but it is very relevant to what's going on. I was hoping to have him on tonight and hoping to have him on soon. But we're looking forward to having all you guys back next Wednesday. Thank you to Tinder Box at Easton, Altadis USA, BS Cigar Company, and most importantly, in my opinion, patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. I'm excited to see what we do with this podcast. And, Ryan from Illinois said, he's like, bring back the squares. I'm happy to have people back in the garage, and we can do this with some more squares on there as far as like people that are not here. We can expand the conversation. We want to include everyone the best we can, but I appreciate the community page.
It gets tough. I will warn you on
the
podcast.
I know.
It gets,
the more people you have on, it's tougher because it's reining people in.
Yeah. Maybe you do like a Tuesday night. I mean, what else you got going on in your life?
Yeah.
He works open to close Tuesday.
Thursdays, whatever.
Hungover on Thursdays.
By 7:30 at night? Holy shit.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's my nap time.
We did do a pretty good job on that model.
Yeah, you're leaving that because I'm going to drink the rest of that.
I told you.
Thank you very much, Jarod.
Thank you, guys. This was awesome, man. I really had fun.
What are we smoking at the end here, real quick?
So this is the Leanda. This is the Leanda number 2.
Okay. Anything about it?
Yeah, it's a great cigar. It's got a Sumatra wrapper, Dominican binder, Honduran and Nicaraguan filler. It's great little smoke. They come in these really cool little coffins too. So you guys ever see those? We make it in this size, which is a short kind of Robusto pyramid, and we make it in a kind of a Churchill pyramid as well. So,
and I was surprised when I cut mine. I didn't cut a whole lot off of it.
It still draws pretty good.
It still draws effortlessly.
Yeah.
No, the factories you're using are fantastic. So
We appreciate it, man.
no, I appreciate you being on here, and I'm happy to have you on after all the time we've known each
We
other.
literally have been talking about doing this since I remember when you guys did the first one, and I would like to give you guys a lot of props for what you guys have built this into. I think it's really fucking cool. And I remember
Not
when
your typical cigar podcast.
no, not
or
at all.
bourbon.
But I like that though. And you guys started. I mean, I remember when you and Jake started this thing.
Yeah.
And how the podcast has flowed and how you guys have changed it since then, and adapting, bringing Nate in. You guys have done a great job, man. So
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun.
Be proud of yourself, man. It's really
No, I'm
cool.
happy to have people actually listening and being a part of it. So,
Yeah.
Nate, thank you very much. Jared, thank you very much. Guys, cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. This is episode 126. Looking forward to next week.
What was that you're getting ready to say?
I was
Jared?
going to say it, but we're going to drink anyway.
Yeah.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers to the
Have a great
formers.
week. We'll see you guys next Wednesday. And in the meantime, join us on the Bourbon and BS community page, and you guys can continue to talk amongst each other. I'll try to stay out of it. Cheers.